Hello and welcome back to the SuperShow podcast. I am your host this week, Alex Jones, and as always, I am joined by the absolute legends, Jamie and Chris. Hello, fellas.
Oh, it's good to be here, Jonesy. Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you for hosting, buddy.
So professional.
Well, thank you for letting me host. You know, sometimes it's nice to take the hot seat and to run the show, as it were. We are a gaming podcast, fellas, aren't we? Despite the epic talks about cheesecake that we had last week. Quickly to say that we are available not just on YouTube in this lovely video format of which some people are watching right now. We're also available on podcasting platforms. I'm talking Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, and I cannot think of any other places where you can listen to podcasts.
Well, probably anywhere they can get podcasts that we should be on there. And if we aren't, just let us know in the comments down below and we'll try and fix that.
Stitcher, is that one?
I think we are on Stitcher.
Yes. Nailed it. We're also, though, available almost like old school on a form of radio, not traditional radio, digital radio, but we're on paisleyradio.com every Thursday at 10 p.m, repeated the week after on Mondays at 10 p.m. So if you would like an authentic 1990s experience, maybe tune into paisleyradio.com and you can have a listen to us there.
Nice.
It's pretty awesome. But I think it's time we sort of jumped into a little bit of a news story. I'm going to do the epic professional thing Chris does every week, and I'm going to give you a little tease for what we're going to talk about later.
You got to cue him up. Listen, Jonesy, you got to get him wet before you stick it in. All right.
That's what people keep telling me. So I'm about to lube them up right now.
We're talking about wet willies, right? Just
wet willies, indeed.
Okay.
Not those kind of wet willies. Like,
I mean,
I was about to say a schoolyard wet willy, but then that also just sounds weird.
That sounds even worse.
Yeah, because Jamie went to public school, so a schoolyard wet willy's probably absolutely.
Well, you always have to put me on blast. By the way, yes, I did, but we did much worse than wet willies. So yeah, we fucked each other all the time.
All the time.
Jesus.
Jonesy, are you honestly telling me that you didn't commemorate the end of a good old rugby match by drinking the piss of another man?
I can safely say we did not.
You're not living life.
We're outside of the first 30 seconds, so I don't have to get stressed out when I do the
YouTube
update that says, is there any profanity or grim stuff in the first 30 seconds? And I often have to go,
maybe? So. Yeah.
When did Chris first start talking about dicks? Okay, no, we're all right. But anyway, okay, in the show coming up, we'll be talking a little bit about some problems at a PlayStation, the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, Oxenfree 2, which I know Chris was super psyched to see the trailer for, and we might get onto some other things as well. But for now...
I love that.
Can't promise.
Yeah.
Can't promise it.
Depends on the time.
A little catch up or a little reminder. What do you call it? Like some extra info about something we talked about last week, which is the Outriders patch that they put out in order to correct a whole bunch of issues that Outriders was having upon launch. In case you don't remember, issues they were having were around servers and crossplay with PC and console, and the fact that a lot of people were simply not able to play the game in the first week that launched, which sucks. Because when you buy a game, especially when you pre-order it like me, one of the things you plan to do is to play it. And if you can't, it's not best.
Well, shit, son. Just out of luck then.
Shit indeed. But there have been a whole bunch of bugs fixed. There was a big patch released. It sorted out a whole bunch of stuff. One of the things it didn't fix was a gear wipe bug, which is pretty brutal because you had people that were sort of max leveling characters getting, grinding for a whole load of gear, loads of legendary stuff, and were effectively signing back into their accounts and finding out that their characters were naked and had nothing and had lost absolutely everything that they'd sort of ground for. What's the past?
Grinded. But that's
grinder, yeah.
Grinder, yeah, the grinded. But they're kind of like... That's kind of the purpose of these games, right? It's all about fucking killing shit so you can get better loot. So
that is the cycle.
The bug is just getting rid of the...
the cycle doesn't involve losing things that you've made progress towards.
No, but this is what I'm saying.
Life is about the accumulation of wealth, but it doesn't mean that you're incentivized by losing all of your money for no reason at all halfway through your life.
No. I think Chris was saying the point of it is to get that stuff, so losing it is like...
Yeah.
What I'm
saying is it's like the
I agree with Chris.
It's the worst. Yeah, thanks. What I'm saying is it's the worst possible bug you could get for a type of game like that.
Like,
Yes,
yeah.
dire.
I mean, okay,
Actually
the worst possible is the game just flat out doesn't work. But whatever, like, come on.
But so we had a whole bunch of people that were saying even after the patch went live that they were still having this problem, that they were logging in and there was a few instances of people saying they'd put sort of like 50 odd hours into a character and they'd lost everything. But yeah, which is a terrible state of affairs to be in. There is a small part of me that is kind of like, okay, at least you can play it, and it's not the worst thing ever. And you've gone in there, you've stuck with it, but it is pretty bad. No, it is a terrible bug. It's a terrible thing to sort of get to.
I don't know, Jonesy,
place in a game, and
don't you think if you've spent, like, let's say, I don't know, call it 50 plus hours on a character, just kind of maxing him up, and this happens to you, and if there's no word of like there's a possibility you can get your shit back, wouldn't you just be like, fuck this game, I'm done, I'm out, move on to the next thing?
I think you probably would, yeah. Like, there's almost a thing of you can stick with something and you can keep plugging away with it if you see that you're getting something for your efforts.
Yeah.
So I think if you then take everything away and you start back at stage one again, there is definitely a sense of I can't be bothered.
Yeah, totally.
Like, imagine you were running a marathon and every mile post you ran past, you're like, I'm nearly there. I've nearly finished the marathon. You got to like mile 20. Someone stuck you in a car, drove you all the way back to the start line, pushed you out and went, go and run the marathon.
Totally.
Like, I'm out.
And in some respects, it's even got like an even deeper wrinkle, which is the fact that obviously the other element with loot games and the fact that they're randomized are rolls, right? Like sometimes you're not just getting a certain weapon drop, but you're also getting a certain type of a certain weapon drop in terms of variable stats and so on and so forth. So even the marathon analogy, that's like, it's like another, I don't even know how you walk
like
that analogy
you back
to
at the
make
start with different shoes.
Yeah. Or putting you back at the start and like spinning you around so you're dizzy, so you'll start running again, but you don't even know if you're running the same way this time. You don't even know if you're going to get to the same place or make the same amount of progress.
Or they drop you out of the car and then they run over your legs as they drive away.
So that so it's even worse when you have to start.
And then as they're driving away, the driver sticks his head out of the window and goes, Alex Jones sends his regards.
Why me? I'm not doing it. The other one.
The other Alex Jones.
I actually, you know what? I changed my Instagram handle recently because it was some stupid, annoying old email that I had, and I changed it. I wanted to just change to Alex Jones. Of course, I couldn't do that because of the other Alex Jones.
Yeah.
So I tried to change it to the other Alex Jones. Couldn't do that. So then I tried to change it to Alex Jones, not that one, the other one, and that was also already taken.
Yeah.
So.
It's a good idea, but I can see how it's a common enough name that I'm guessing that joke gets played out quite quickly.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. So there are a couple of little fixes that have come out of. I guess it's People Can Fly that's come out of instead of Square Enix. I don't know who's running the account.
Because Square Enix is just the publisher, right?
Yes, for sure. Yes, they are. So I want to see what you guys think to some of these answers to the problems that people have been having. So one of the things that they've suggested they're going to do for everyone who played the game between 31st of March and the 11th of April, they're actually going to put out an appreciation package. So it's kind of to say, we know we screwed up. And to say sorry, we're going to give you some in-game loot to say, so I guess to say sorry. It's an appreciation package, but it should be called an apology package. You will get
we fucked up package.
Exactly, yeah. You'll get a level appropriate legendary weapon, a level appropriate amount of titanium, and this is my favourite, an emote called Frustration, which is they put out unironically. It just so happens that it's got a very apt name.
Wow. Okay.
And the other thing as well is that they've said is they are working on a patch, obviously, to fix the gear wipe issue, and they've said that they will be able to use back-end analytics in order to sort of assess who has had this bug and to roll back to give you your gear back. So thoughts on those?
But what happens if your gear got wiped and you're like, okay, well, fuck this, I'm frustrated, I'm going to jump straight back in and spend another 75 hours. Are they going to wipe that just to restore you to the one you were before? Or
I don't know if I'm making this up, but I think it's cumulative. Like you get given your old stuff on top of your new stuff.
Oh, giving it back. Okay. Well, that's fair. It's almost like that's the only thing that you could possibly, like, okay, I mean, limitations aside of like, are they actually able to do it? But of all the things that you could do, that's the minimum you could do, right? Like, this game is about accumulating gear. You have to give people their gear back if you can. And I guess the appreciation package is good, but that just kind of, not that there's anything wrong with it. It's good that they're doing it, and I think it's a nice thing for the players. But that does seem to me to be a thing of saying, like, hey, don't abandon the game. At least log in and see what you're getting. Do you know what I mean? It's like a way of... Because like what I said is, if it happened to me, I'd probably put my hands up and say, fuck this game, and walk away. But this is something to say, hey, don't walk away. Maybe come back and then make your mind up, you know?
There is an odd thing, though, because isn't that, when you say, screw it, I'm done with this game, there's almost like a psychological element to that I find it quite hard to sort of roll back from. Because if in my head I've said, screw this game, and then they said, well, hold on, we'll give you all your gear back and we'll give you the appreciation package, there's a part of me that might say, do you know what? I'm already considering playing this other game instead. I don't want to play your game anymore.
Jonesy, you're so right. I mean, it's happened to me in Cyberpunk. Still sitting there on my desktop, unopened, since, I don't know, since the first week it came out.
I was going to say, December.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And it's like, hey, all these patches are out and they've fixed it. They've just released another hot fix because apparently cops were spawning on the roof behind you, sniping your ass. Like, okay, fine. It's almost like it makes you lose interest entirely. So I do feel bad for People Can Fly and, but then Square Enix as well.
Cyberpunk's an interesting comparison, though, because I wonder if players end up getting split into the same two groups in both cases here, both Cyberpunk and Outriders. Players who try and stick with the game long enough to experience that problem or that frustration firsthand, and that's what makes them fall off. Or players who have the restraint to take themselves away from the game while it has the problems, in the knowledge that they will come back to it eventually because they haven't got that animosity there. Like, I'm someone that saw this...
I'm saying...
But it depends how deep you were in. Like, Jonesy, you probably only played, maybe less than 5 hours of the retail release of Outriders. So you're looking at this and probably thinking, oh, okay, actually maybe there is no real rush or pressure to get back in. It might actually be worth letting this situation play out. Jonesy could go back to that game next week and not harbour any ill will towards it, you know? So I guess it depends what players are doing. Someone else, though, might say, like a coronavirus situation, I'll probably be fine, plays that extra 100 hours, then gets hit with the bug, and then they're fuming, and then they never play again.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
I was quite lucky, like you say, Jamie, in that I played for probably about 4 or 5 hours and then just didn't have time to play, didn't have time to jump in. Also didn't have, because not many people I know are playing it at the moment anyway, so there was nothing to say, let's hop in immediately. But actually, I'm looking like I might come out the back of this with the appreciation package and fresh to it, all the fixes done. I did have one instance of the server not letting me play, but that was it. So I've been very lucky. But there's a slew of people that have not been so lucky, and this definitely sucks for them. So hopefully it gets all sorted out soon.
Jamie,
enjoy that game.
Have you picked it up yet?
No. I much like you guys, I've had a very busy week, so there's been some gaming, but I've had to sort of pick and choose where I've spent my time, and Outriders hasn't popped up yet.
Yeah, fair.
I'm waiting for like a big... Do you know what? I'm waiting to get fired. I think it's at that stage. I'm just waiting to get the email where it's like, hey, you're fucking fired. And then I'll be like, perfect, I'm going to buy Outriders and not talk to anyone for the next week.
Love it.
I'm gonna, at least that's like a silver lining. That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
If I get fired, then I'm gonna have a great time playing that.
Exactly. If you give yourself things to look forward to, even in those worst case scenarios, then life is just a lot more happy. It's a more upbeat, it's a more positive place to be. You know?
Maybe that's when people go postal, is when they're like, it's all right, if I get fired, I'm going to go play this game. And then they go to play the game, the servers are crashed, and they go, fuck it, I'll kill everyone. And they just go mental.
Yes, that is probably what would make me crack. If I got gear wiped after playing Outriders, having lost my job, then can't be held accountable for my actions.
I think that's fair. That's fair.
Right, well, I think it's time now to show you a little bit of appreciation for our Patreons. They are Anthony Muncie, Aaron Cameron, Athletic Gravy, Hacksaw Book Reed, Jesper Camdo Nielsen, Javella Cujo, Leo Merger, Lonnie Thompson, Magic Grits, Mindful Pig, Nathan Pears, Pastors Guild, Scary Omen, Starful Kid, Zach Cream, and the big dogs. It is Shell Shock, Manuel Guerrero, Peaswad, and The Dude Abides. thank you ever so much to all of you guys who support us, and thank you to everyone who watches, subscribes, likes, anyone who engages with our content. Really, it all really does help. I do appreciate the comments on the videos that just say comment.
Yeah,
because even those, to be fair,
comment or I'm doing this for the algorithm. Yeah.
If you know, you know.
Listing out those names is like music to my ears. I fucking love it.
So should we have a little comment of the week from the last video that we had?
Love a cheeky
episode
little
67
comment.
was last week, wasn't it?
Yeah.
This comes from GTA V75. They say maybe get some timestamps because I was at the part where you were talking about DC movies or right after it, and I tried to full screen, but it went to the end of the video, and now I've no idea where or what time I was listening to. Lol. Which
lol. Well,
this is a thing we've messed around with before, timestamps, haven't we?
Yeah.
Controversial.
Yeah.
Controversial. And the only reason we don't do it, we decided before the podcast, is because we're lazy. And that's
I think that's the main reason. I mean, there are some like ancillary reasons around it, which people may see as an excuse, but we do kind of jump around a lot, right? So
yeah,
it things get messy, all right. And I guess it's not like a straight thing on our document. It's not like, hey, 5 minutes on this topic. It's like, no, we'll speak about a topic until we've fucking rinsed it, and then we'll go to another topic, and then hey, guess what? We might go back to the original topics. It's like. We could timestamp it all, but lazy.
Imagine last week's would have been like minute 1 to 15, Cheesecake
Factory.
Right, like even the thing that GTAV talks about, DC movies, that's not something we probably would have timestamped if we did timestamps, because that's the kind of thing that just happened in conversation. I'm not even 100% sure it was something we noted to talk about. It might have like sprung out from someone's recap or something like that. Jonesy, you started talking about Wonder Woman or something?
Yeah, I believe that was it.
But then it's like, do you timestamp every single game or movie that every one of us watched in each of our things? So you have like 9 timestamps in the course of 10, 20 minutes? Because I don't know, difficult.
I think I think you guys are right. The reason, ironically, that we don't timestamp, the main reason probably, is for the very reason that GTA 575 has said, which is it's such a mess that we'd have no idea what we timestamp for. We would every week have to go through and be like, what are we talking about?
Also, consider that because it's not off of our podcast document that we can just refer to, because we just fucking ad-lib whatever fuck we need to, like, we'd have to sit through. So we'd record the podcast for about 2 hours. Then we'd have to edit this shit, like render it, and then listen back to it again, like another 2 hours. Ain't nobody got time for that.
There's also... Go on.
Jesus Christ! Can we get like a talking conch or something? What was it fucking called?
You have to pass the shell around so you can actually talk. Yeah, maybe.
There you go, Jamie.
Thank you. That would have played out absolutely horribly on audio. Shout out to Paisley Radio. I was going to say, do you nominate a community member to be the community timestamper and give them official permission to leave a comment if they can be bothered with timestamps?
We pin it?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. And maybe
if someone
maybe we
wants
give
to
them a
do it,
shout out in the next. We'll call them the official GIMP.
Well, so you've been warned, folks. That's going to be your title if you start leaving timestamps. You're just going to get referred to as that. So it comes with the territory, I'm afraid.
Hey, some people like it, man.
Fair enough.
What, being a GIMP or?
Yeah.
I watch Pulp Fiction.
Look at Jonesy. He's in a fucking sex dungeon. I mean,
there's a reason you can't see what's happening from the tits down on Jonesy's camera. It's all leather and clamps, baby.
There are sex slaves strewn about the floor.
A boot?
A boot.
Jonesy, the Canadian GIMP.
I feel like sex slave Jonesy would be Canadian.
Sex slave Jonesy.
Sex slave Jonesy.
In the masturbatorium. I love it.
Was that the Instagram name you settled on in the end? Sex slave Jonesy?
Yeah, sex slave Jonesy.
69. Nice.
As you know, with the messiness of the podcast, a little insight sort of behind the curtain, not this curtain, but behind the curtain as to why it's such a mess is because we pretty much only get to talk together like this once a week. And I know from my perspective, I'm such an excited little puppy when we actually get to sit down and chat that it just becomes a complete mess of
The big problem
diarrhea.
is, I guess, we sit down, switch on our cameras, our microphones, etc., our lights, whatever it may be, and then we just talk shit before we even hit record for about an hour.
True.
This week it was Chris just looking at the clock going, can we please start? Please, can you stop? Please, can we start? Can we start?
But I feel like that was my only role for a lot of the time at ATG, was just kind of corralling you two and just saying like, come on guys, let's record this video. Come on guys, let's edit this video. Come on guys, let's edit this video. Let's upload it. Come on, fellas.
But when you weren't there to do the VO recordings, they were a lot quicker and smoother. So,
Yeah, this is true.
Just going to put that out there. Anyway, talking about what we've been talking about and what we've been getting up to.
What are we talking about?
Talking about what we've been talking about.
Talking about what we've been talking about and talking about what we've been doing in the last week, I want to find out what you guys have actually been up to and what you've been playing. So, Chris, what have you been playing? What have you been doing? What's been going on?
So, I haven't really been playing much. So, I guess maybe what the catch-up thing is kind of turning into, what I've noticed the past couple of weeks, is it's
chip report.
The chip report. Well, funnily enough, it does say chips on this document. We'll get to that in a bit. But it seems like 50% what we've been playing is a catch-up, and 50% of stuff we just want to talk about. So, so the only things that I've been playing is Apex Legends on stream, twitch.tv/hotpanic. Had a good time. On Friday, I did pretty well. Got 2 wins, couple of top 5s, what have you. Did it again on Wednesday, and I got a win, and I did 0 damage in that win. So that was fun. That was my pacifist run. To be fair, I was a healer, but I didn't do any healing. So there we go, lifeline for the win.
Were you a ghost? Did you just follow some people around?
No, but do you know what I mean? Like sometimes a viable strat in Battle Royale games is just skirting around other people and letting them kill themselves. Which is kind of what we did, but we had one player who was an absolute fucking god. He had like 11 kills in this fucking match. It was insane. And the thing is, not making excuses. I'm not a very good Apex player. I'm getting better as it goes on. But this dude was so on the ball that me and the other teammate were so far behind him, like physically on the map, running to try and catch up to him, that by the time we catch up to him, he just like squad wiped a team. It's like, oh, okay.
Decent.
Yeah,
was he cheating? I've got to ask the question.
No, this dude was
aimbotting.
I think he's just a machine, dude. Like, if you play enough hours in a game, you can get good at a game, and I think it's just the dude who loves Apex. And why not? Hey, guess what? 100 million people are playing Apex as of recently, we were being told.
True.
So that's a big fucking milestone, and I think that's pretty cool. And they're just getting started. Some more Titanfall stuff is meant to be coming to Apex, which I'm really excited about. Although someone on stream did mention, is like, come on, you can't be too happy about that. Because someone said like, oh, I can't wait for Titanfall 3. And I was like, hey, well, a little bit of a consolation. Titanfall stuff is coming to Apex. And he's like, yeah, come on. But that's like saying Sam Fisher's coming to Ghost Recon Wildlands.
Oh, jeez.
I was like, fuck, you know what? You're absolutely right.
Yeah. That's a good point, actually. That does recontextualize some of my... Plus, I'm not even sure I need Titans in Apex. And I know that's rich coming from a guy who hasn't played Apex in as long as I... like, over a year at this stage.
Yeah.
And turns down...
I get what you're saying. Like, the game is robust enough without him. What I would like to see is maybe... I'd love to see wall running return as a mechanic in the game. I don't know how they balance it, but I think it would be cool. Like, if everyone's got wall running, what's there really to balance?
Yeah.
And you say you can only fun. You could say you only wall run a certain amount of time. I just think it would be better.
I must admit, I did used to enjoy Titanfall's multiplayer more than I enjoy Apex.
Fair enough. Yeah,
the way that it worked, the wall running, everything, I thought was a lot better time. I just don't really enjoy Apex for some reason.
It's so delicious.
I don't know. Maybe I need to just play more of it.
Yeah, but play it with me on stream one day, Jonesy. We'll have a good time.
We always do that. We'll hop in. We'll have,
and then maybe we can convince Jamie to come back to the Battle Royale fold.
I mean, I'm still kind of in the Battle Royale fold, just not the Apex one. That's the issue.
Enough. So you're on the wrong one. That's all right.
I'm on the one that I have a lot more fun playing.
That's fair. Hey, well, you haven't been playing Apex in a long time, so how do you know you're not going to enjoy it?
I mean, I last played Apex.
When was it? We're on season 8 now.
I'm trying to think when it would have been. It would have been about April or May last year. It was in lockdown.
Okay, that's fairly recent. Yeah.
Or maybe it was slightly earlier than that, but it was in lockdown. So, I'm not completely out of touch, but then I haven't seen any of the most recent new map, the one with vehicles on it. Never played that at all.
Oh, right. The one in the clouds. It's okay.
Yeah, the one that's all like futuristic.
There's some cool areas in it, for sure. But yeah, I just like what they're doing. So the rumors are that a lot more Titanfall stuff is coming in, as I mentioned. There's been a rumor for a while that Blisk, which was the main bad dude in Titanfall 2, is going to come back as a character, and his ult is going to be summoning a Titan to kind of be a self-contained turret that kind of walks around an area, which is pretty cool.
Jesus. Pretty devastating in a final circle, though.
Yeah. I wonder how they're going to manage that one. But I always thought, like, when Apex first launched and there weren't any Titans, obviously we were quite disappointed, but I always theorized that a really cool mode would be if a Titan falls in a map at a certain area, and it's just a free-for-all. If you get in the Titan, you get in the Titan, and it's yours, maybe for a limited amount of time. And it could become a nice kind of... so the circle kind of brings everyone together to a point to fight, right? That's essentially its purpose, to end the game, bring everyone together, you fight it out, you get a winner. Because otherwise, everyone's just going to hide in the map and no one's going to hunt each other down. But a Titan might serve a similar kind of role in saying, like, here's a Titan, it's an objective that you can go and fight over. And there's a reward for it.
Warzone tried something like that. Did you guys ever play Warzone while the Juggernauts were in the game?
No, I didn't.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting, Chris, because they kind of ended up serving both sides of that equation, wherein they were kind of an interesting thing to go for, to make a play for, and to fight for. And it did also sometimes give rise to interesting end games. For example, you have a situation where, let's say, second last circle or last circle, 5 teams left, one of them's a Juggernaut team. The Juggernaut team is on the map the whole time because the Juggernaut's on the map the whole time. Yeah. And so is under a greater concentration of fire, which then has to that hopefully balances out the advantages the Juggernaut gets.
Yeah.
But I still feel like, based on the people I was talking to at the time, the net feeling on Juggernauts was they didn't have a place in the game. In that they just disrupted the balance too much.
Yeah.
Like, it's no longer a question of can you shoot, are you better at this game than someone else? Which frustrated
when you got
people.
the Juggernaut, did you just have the Juggernaut until it was...
Yes, and you actually, I think, replenished health on kills. Or something. It was something like that.
That just sounds unbalanced, really. But, like, imagine if a Titan falls into the game, you can pick it up, but it'll only last a certain amount of time, because then its power core will run out or whatever it is.
But then if it's guaranteed to not last to the end of the match, why would people go for it?
I can kind of
because you're also, sorry, Jonesy, but you're also presumably, while you're in the Titan, you're not looting. So then you're like, okay, I'm not looting for a portion of the game, and I benefit from this thing, but I won't have it at the end.
I don't know. I can kind of see an idea that, if I grab the Titan, I can do some damage, get some kills to try and switch the, if you're feeling like you're I don't know, maybe not the best player and you want to take out some other people and you want to do some damage, then that would be not a bad way to do it.
Yeah, but
if you say, I'm going to briefly get into a Titan, go for this team, take out some people, and then like get out.
Because I think it could serve as a strat, right? Like, sometimes you play the game, you get the gear you want by like halfway through the match, and you're like, okay, I've got everything I need. Sure, maybe you don't have like fucking golden armor or some shit like that, but you've got your purple armors, your Evo shields, whatever, and you're like, I've got good weapons, good attachments, got all the ammo I need. Then it's like, hey, it just adds an element, I think. But yeah, whatever, that maybe that's just me. But I'm enjoying Apex, and I think you guys should join me. We have some fun. But yeah,
I think I'm struggling to enjoy any of those battle royale games at the moment. Like even Warzone, I think it's the problem is if you don't stick with them enough, which I definitely don't. I think I struggle with getting back into them. And I think Apex massively so, because I haven't played it much at all in the last probably 18 months. Warzone, even every time I fall off that for a few weeks, I find it hard to get back into.
I find Warzone very hard to get back into, but I think for me at least, Apex is easier to kind of fall back into.
Right.
Because I don't know, it just seems less serious. I don't know, like less. Fucking, I'm struggling to kind of explain it, but it just seems. It seems more casual. It just seems more casual.
You made me think, and one of the things I hate that they've added into Warzone is at the end of the match when you get all of people's microphones are just turned on. And you can hear everyone yelling, and it's just people yelling shit. Like, it's so pointless. I don't know why they've done that. Like, it's just what do we want at the end of a match? We want everyone to hear what a bunch of bellends they've been playing against for the last hour. Yeah, that's what we want. We want everyone to yell, "Fuck your mum, man! You suck!" And
that's why you only stay when you win, so that you can be the person that says, "Hey, fuck your mum," because you beat them. You're better than them.
There we go.
So I play the only times I play Warzone at the moment, I play with a group of guys that prefer playing Plunder because they like to play it more of a like a traditional multiplayer thing where you just come. They don't even get the money; they just want to go and get kills, and I can see why.
Jamie's
like,
just
funny.
died a little inside.
You just basically, you know what you just basically just said? The only time I play baseball at the moment, I do it with a bunch of blokes who prefer rounders.
No, because it's not because what is
different kettle of fish.
It is a mode in Warzone, but they like so they
It's
like
not,
to go.
it's not a battle royale.
They like no, it's not a battle royale, but I can see why because you get to drop in, fight, and every time you die, you respawn, and you get to just.
Do you know what that sounds like? Multiplayer.
Exactly. It's because they like to play the multiplayer element. They don't like the battle royale element, and I can see why because it is fun to just keep dropping in and just keep fighting people, like and using your builds as well. It's a great place to test out new builds,
interesting
and stuff like that.
So you're saying you can use a loadout in a mode where you respawn? This is, okay. I don't know why Call of Duty never thought of things like this before.
on that big map, it's I like it as well. I do like it on that big map. I think it's a cool way to do it.
Fair enough.
But
the big map is a difference.
On that mode, when the game finishes, everyone is still in. So when those mics open, it is absolute carnage and it's horrendous.
Okay, now that I agree with you is dumb.
It's ridiculous. There's like 100 people just going, "Rah, you're a fucking idiot. Rah, you bunch of dicks."
I kind of want to reinstall Warzone just to experience that now.
Well,
you don't.
I don't know how much longer it's going to be around, but I'll jump in now and say that I was with Jonesy where I hadn't actually played Warzone for like. Not consistently, at least for like 2 or 3 weeks. I think the longest period of time since Warzone launched that I've gone without properly playing the game. I was just completely out of it, didn't care for the meta, was getting shit on rubbish lobbies, just not having fun. A friend of ours messages me, and there's a mode in the game that's been in the game before. It's called Mini Royale, which is, it's a smaller player count and it starts on a smaller portion of the map. But the thing is with Warzone, and how much you want to read into this is up to anyone, I guess. But the temporary modes and the smaller match modes that are always less popular than the main mode are synonymous with weaker usages or sometimes almost no usage of skill-based matchmaking. And so you're more likely to get a lobby that is full of people who you probably shouldn't be playing with, which for the kill-death ratios that me and my friends have in the regular Battle Royale mode, for us, that's preferable if we can get
advantageous.
So he messaged us being like, "Hey, there's this mode that apparently has a weak SBMM." So we jumped on, played 2 nights this week. I took a picture of my stats after 2 nights. 14 games, 7 wins. So we won once every other game, and my kill death ratio is 2.79.
Nice, very nice.
So essentially, what you did is your friend came over, and said, "Hey, do you want to go over to the playground and beat up some children?"
Yes, yeah. Because apparently, we don't know for sure, but Warzone's skill-based matchmaking system seems to kind of like it uses all the elements it can to basically you're more likely to get a lobby that's less built around you, the more inhibiting factors you put in front of it to putting you in the game. I explained that really poorly.
Such as.
So what we do is, again, playing Mini Royale, because there's much less people playing it than the main game, so the player base is much smaller. And we also played at between 1 and 3 a.m. So people in our time zone and on our servers, there's much less of them. And so the fewer people it can pull from, the harder time it has finding people who are at your level, and the more likely it is, there's like an in-game clock, an invisible clock, and the longer it goes, the more you're waiting for the match, the more the system is to go, fuck it, just throw them anywhere. And when it does that, you're likely to get people who aren't actually matchmade based on your skill level. We won, as I said, 7 out of 14. And it's also just a really good way of practicing those endgame scenarios because you're in there so quickly. like rotations and so on and so forth. We played some really great. We won 3 in a row on the first night.
Nice. I guess that's to Jonesy's point of saying like battle royale games can be kind of hard to kind of because to get good at a game you need to continually play it, right? But if you're bad at a game and you don't get towards those end game scenarios to practice it, it becomes harder and harder to kind of get the spectrum of the flow of the game from start to finish. Right.
You always have the thing that as the longer you play one of those games, the better you're doing, the harder the players you inevitably are facing. So, which is kind of killer because the better you do, the longer you invest in one match, the more brutal it is when you lose, but the more likely it is that you lose because the players are getting better by definition of everyone else getting killed off by those players. Yeah. And it just gets worse. Like I remember in the early days of playing Warzone, some matches would last for like 45 minutes, I swear. It felt like, maybe not that long, but like you'd be there for a long time. Like I used to always finish in, it seemed in the top, say like 10, and I would never win. So, but then I'd managed to squeeze in like 3 games.
Yeah.
And it was brutal that you're like, well, I've only played 3 games and it's been nearly an hour and a half, like 2 hours. Like this is killer. And just want to be able to churn through more games more quickly.
That's where you have to change your strat, Jonesy, and you just have to always land in the hot zones.
I think that's a really good idea. Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
I remember when we played Apex Legends in the early days, like right when it came out, and I remember thinking to myself, how unlucky must we be to get second place or third place as often as we do? And it was because we just stuck to the edge of the zone. And it's like with 20 teams.
Yeah, you don't know how to play the game if you keep doing that.
Right, exactly. And so, like, we'd get to the final 2 and be like, oh, yeah, second place. By the way, I've got, a blue shield and, like, an alternator with a level 1 barrel stabilizer. Good luck.
But the weird thing about Apex is, I played that with a couple months ago with Martin Ruffle, because I was like, okay, I'm up for playing some Apex. And we weren't sticking to the edge of the map. We just would, like, play in the game, and we just didn't come across anyone. And we just so happened to be like in the middle of every circle. And by the time it got to the last like 3 teams, we hadn't fought any other teams. We hadn't seen any other teams. And we were in the top 3. And I was just like, this is not a fun game. we even found one of the vehicles and we were just driving around like we'd stolen a car. We were just like, and we didn't see
joyriding.
And the vehicles are so fucking loud as well. Yeah, it's crazy. I think
we were just joyriding.
I think their maps definitely could use more players in them for sure. But anyway, yeah, look. That's Titanfall. Titanfall. That's Apex. I fucking love it. Now, the other game that I love is Dota 2, and I actually haven't played any Dota 2. They came out with a brand new patch with a brand new hero, and this patch was like fucking major, big changes to the patch. But I just haven't had time to kind of jump into it. I guess I could have swapped out some of the Apex streams for Dota streams, but I don't know. For whatever reason, it just felt I could squeeze in more Apex games than I could in Dota games in the amount of time that I stream. I'll only probably be able to play 2 Dota matches per stream, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, looking forward to get into that. The new character is a new carry, so with some balancing issues. But yeah, it seems cool. But other than that, and I think Jonesy's going to talk about this as well. But hey, I've been watching some of the Snyder Cut, fellas. I've been squirrel gaming meets squirrel film watching, because I've been squirreling away, like watching, I don't know, 45-minute chunks at a time. And I'm full disclosure, I haven't finished it yet. Okay, I still have 50 minutes left, I think.
Okay,
but my God,
that is a long ass film.
Yeah, it's funny. Before we hit record, I was actually talking to Jamie about it and saying, it doesn't feel that long, but maybe it's because I've been watching it in fits and starts. And then also maybe because I haven't watched a 4-hour film. So far, I've only watched a 3-hour and 10-minute film.
But you basically watched a TV series, which is Justice League, the series.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, even when you're watching it, it's got like a title card that comes up. It says Part 1 with a little subtitle and Part 2 and Part 3. So, there probably was an idea of that. But yeah, I'm just astounded at how much more coherent and enjoyable it is compared to the Justice League. Like, Josie, I mean, I don't know, you're going to talk about it as well, but I've been enjoying it. It's by no means a great film. I still have issues with putting all those characters together. But I enjoyed it. I like it. I mean, hands up. I'm like, yeah, cool. Give me some.
Shoot me.
Shoot me. Shoot me in the face, why don't you?
I can't tell if Jonesy's about to agree with you or disagree.
Yeah, I know.
with you.
Well, I'm waiting.
He's being very patient, unnervingly so.
Unloaded, Jonesy. So you hold on. Have you finished it? Have you finished it?
I have finished it.
Okay.
Yeah, we did it in 2 sittings, which I think was quite a good way to do it. It's funny because, like the way you said about putting away like 45 minutes here, 45 minutes there. Watching it in 2 sittings worked really well in the set. We did a really good break. I can't remember where exactly it was, but I think, I'll tell you where it was. It was right before they resurrect Superman.
Yeah, that's a decent place to kind of split it.
It could have been part 1 and part 2. That would have been the perfect place to do it. Do you know what they would have done if it was part 1, part 2? They would have had him be resurrected, and then you would have had the shot of him flying, and then it would have gone end, and then it would have said, and then you would have waited for part 2. So we watched it, and I think what you said was the thing that stood out to me, which was cohesive.
Yeah,
it actually had a real sense of like what the aim was, what was going on, what their mission was, and then how they went about achieving it. And I just don't remember that it being in the Joss Whedon one. I don't remember it having anywhere near like that sense of cohesion in the plot. It just seems so messy.
I remember coming out of the cinema for the Joss Whedon one, thinking to myself, this film is a mess. None of it makes sense. It's just like it was a jumble of a film.
I'd go so far as to say that with the original version, I didn't really know what happened. Like by the end of the film, there was a whole bunch of scenes that I'd seen that I thought was kind of shit, and there were some cool things happened, some things that were kind of boring. But I had in my head a list of like scenes that I'd seen, but I didn't really have any idea about like the story, the wider story. I didn't really care. This though, weirdly, I don't know if this was. I'm sure it wasn't intended. This was almost like the Avengers, like Endgame and Infinity War. It was almost the same story for one. Like space aliens come from another planet through a portal, and then the big bad is going to come through the portal and he's going to arrive, and then you have the epic battle at the end and da 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 da. Like this felt like Infinity War to me. And even Darkseid even looks like Thanos, which is
they're meant to be foils, even though Darkseid came out first, and then Thanos was the copy of Darkseid. But yeah, they're effectively the same character with the same motivations. Well,
I mean, so they do
not really
that
the same
a lot.
motivations, but yeah, they're the same tier of character in the idea of the comics. Yeah,
and all these sorts of movies, comics, everything do this, don't they? Where they effectively use. They don't copy each other, but they somehow run very similar themes, and you probably it's because they see the comic book, like DC see Marvel doing it, and then Marvel see DC doing it, and they go, well, that seems to work quite well, and then naturally you tend toward that because your audience appreciates some things and blah blah blah. So I get why that happened, but it was very similar in some places to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I quite enjoyed it, I guess. It was. I'm trying to. Some of it though was so Zack Snyder, like it was like watching 300. The amount of slow motion in that film.
Oh, the slow mo and the use of like, let's just play a song and let the whole song play out in a montage. It's like, okay,
right.
I don't need this much of it. Or like, let's just have this Icelandic woman just sing a hymn while Aquaman goes into the fucking water. What was that about?
My wife actually said at that point, "Why is she singing?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she went, "Why have they picked out that one?" Like, she was like, "At first, I thought they'd picked out like the surprisingly attractive whatever one." She's like, "But she just looks like a random woman from the crowd who's just singing." And it's weird as well. Maybe I shouldn't say this. She looked like she did look a bit like no, I won't.
Probably for the best, Alex Jones.
I won't. Like it was the whole that collection of characters and how they looked in general was kind of weird. I didn't really get what they were going for with that. Like, I get what they said they were going for, but anyway, I'll tell you guys after what I was going to say. I won't say it now, just in case it's offensive.
Wow, there we go.
But I found that scene very strange, and my wife found it very strange as well. It's a weird ass scene. Not to mention some of the shit in that film anyway, that it wasn't Zack Snyder's fault, but like the underwater people, and then they'd make a bubble of air to have a chat, which is so
very stupid.
Oh, we can't actually do the talking in the water because we'll just be going blah, 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 blah. So for the audience and for the movie, we'll have this stupid thing where all the underwater people just pop bubbles of air to have a convo. Like, just maybe live on land then. You obviously don't like the water that much, do you?
Fair point.
Really.
Yeah. Yeah, but
And you've also got the ludicrous thing in these films of there's no continuity of like force. So someone can hit someone and it does X damage, and then someone hits someone else and it obviously does 10,000 million times more damage, but it has like a 2-factor more of an effect than the person who the
it's
other
because
hit.
it serves the
doesn't work.
story more, right? It's like,
Yes.
this person's going to get hit extra hard.
And it's just weird, like it's just kind of odd. But no, anyway, yeah, it was. But no, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it I preferred this story to the previous version. I thought it was much better. It was very Zack Snyder. It was very 300. There was lots of slow mo and music, and it was slow and grainy and gritty. But it was all right. It was good.
Oh, can I make a request for any future filmmakers out there? If you're thinking of getting women to sing in the music for theme songs, such as the Wonder Woman theme song was the just don't do it. I think we're over it, all right? I know Gladiator did it to great effect. You know what I'm talking about, Jamie.
I know, I'm trying to pass like what you're actually asking for here. You're asking for women to no longer be able to sing in films.
No, just
Wow.
don't. Wow.
Misogyny.
Okay. Yeah, there we go. No, what I'm saying is that
I know what you mean.
Having
I know
a
what you
musical
mean.
score with a woman like doing a hymn sound, like it just doesn't. It's just so fucking overused, and I hate it so much. It's personal preference, but there we go. It just grates me.
Can I have one more gripe about this film?
Yes.
So that dude with the really stupid name, the bad guy, what's his name?
Steppenwolf.
Steppenwolf. It's like, might as well just call him Stephen Murphy. I mean, he's so close.
Stephen Murphy.
Can you
So
imagine?
Stephen-
Please, can we do a deep fake with Steph just kind of like, give me your boxes.
We get Warner Brothers on the line. Another $10 million on visual effects. We need to do a face replacement.
So
Hell yeah.
Stephen Murphy, right?
Yeah.
With his stupid armor, manages eventually to get 2
I
boxes.
loved his armor. I thought it was sick.
Manages to get 2 boxes, right?
Yeah.
And then he forms that impenetrable shield
Yes.
in order to protect him and his super army. And he's come from a super advanced civilization that go around conquering tens of thousands of planets, hundreds of thousands of planets. Earth being the only one they didn't manage to fully conquer. They've got the 2 mother boxes that are all powerful. 3 of them together are you cannot stop. He
Yeah.
makes his fortress. Well done. Batman, who made a friggin' plane, flies to it and hits it with some missiles, doesn't break it, which makes sense, just says, I just needed a few more, and then blows it with some more missiles, and then gets through it. Like, what?
Well, it's kinda-
Steppenwolf's shittest,
Yeah.
protective dome ever. It was
it's
the
like-
worst force field in any film ever.
Yeah, it's like the opposite of plot armor, right? It's like plot missiles. Because if
Like,
he doesn't,
yeah.
if he doesn't have plot missiles, you can't carry on the story. So
Who knew that all you need to do was hit a force field with just a few missiles, and then it makes a hole and you can fly right through it. That's a design flaw right there.
yeah, well, it's like the Death Star, right? There you go.
Also, don't get me started on the fact that Batman is shit. Like, he has no powers, and they do joke about the fact he has no powers. But his power seems to be willpower, and he just tries really hard.
Yeah.
And because he tries really hard, he manages to.
No,
do
Jonesy, you
all
don't
sorts of
understand.
shit.
In this one, he's got money and he's got faith.
He's got money and faith. Oh, one more gripe. Aquaman.
We're gonna be here all day.
No, we won't. Aquaman pops through the little hole in the tunnel when the water starts coming in, like his reveal that he's going to
under
join
the
the
bay.
team.
Yeah.
Under the bay. He stops the water for them to escape. All the other heroes stand and watch him as he does it until he fails to do it anymore because there's too much water, at which point they all say, shit, we better run away. The whole point he was stopping the water was so you could run away.
Yeah.
Watch that bit again. They all stop as soon as he starts doing it to be amazed by how cool he is. And then when he fails, they all go, oh shit, now we better run away.
Watch that bit again. I just imagine you like with an action replay. Now watch this bit again.
But imagine like a zombie film where there's a zombie horde coming at you and someone drops in and starts shooting them all in the heads and it's like, oh, stop them, you guys get away. And then they all stand there and watch until the guy's overwhelmed and the zombies start running at you again. They all go, oh shit, and they start running.
Hey, you know what? Funny you said imagine a zombie film because Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead just got a trailer.
Oh, is it going to be all that women singing in slow motion again? And
There'll be some slow motion for sure. Dave Bautista's in it.
Ellie.
You know, it's funny listening to you guys, or Jonesy, you specifically talk about that movie. I'm not sure. I bring this up more as a point of interest and not as a criticism. Trust me, this isn't meant to be like a slight on you
Of
in any
me
way.
or the film?
Well,
Oh, wow,
not even of you, just of like the conversation you were just having. But it was interesting to get your guys' takes on it and whether or not you think like, well, feel the same way as me, and that the Justice League seems like a weird target for this. Which is that there was an interesting conversation that was happening, I think, on the movie subreddit that I was reading the other day. That was basically a guy complaining about modern day movie reviewers on YouTube. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Because he thinks, or this individual thought, that they have changed the conversation around film critiquing and made a whole generation of people think that film criticism is now synonymous with nitpicking. That just picking up plot holes is now criticism. That you can say you didn't enjoy a film, and when someone asks why, you say, well, because Aquaman held up the water and they didn't run away. When actually, those are the things we should be overlooking in service of actually a broader criticism of the film itself.
Totally.
I'd agree, but I would agree with that. I'd completely agree with that person's point. Like, I don't like it when a reviewer of a game, of movies or books or whatever, I don't like it when they sort of pull on a thread, because it feels like they're specifically doing it so that they can go, look what I found, look what I saw.
Right.
I must be better at what I'm doing. The thing I think is different about some of the things I picked out, I'm not a reviewer by any stretch.
Totally.
I don't have the credentials.
That's why I didn't want it to come across as like a criticism of you, because we're just having a conversation.
My taste is too bad for me to be like a critic. No one should take my opinion of like games or movies as anything to go by. But no, I think the difference is when you're physically sitting there watching the film or playing the game, if it makes you stop and take stock and laugh or comment during. So I was just watching it with my wife of an evening. Like, we were just sitting down, eating, having a drink and watching it. And we literally both stopped, looked at each other and laughed. And we're like, what the fuck? Why did that just happen? And I think when it does that's a difference between nitpicking and pulling you out of the enjoyment of whatever it is to make you go.
That's a good point. But I also think, like, I know you weren't directing it at us, Jamie, but if you take us as an example, you know, we started off, I guess, looking at it as starting it off as a bit of a review, right? We're saying, like, talking about cohesion and the comparison between the initial one and the new one and how it kind of works better with the character development, etc. I mean, that's really what you need to talk about when you're doing a review. You know, you're talking about plot, character, craft, you know, you're talking about cinematography, whatever it may be. But totally. I think as a casual discussion as we have amongst friends, which is what we kind of emulate on this thing, it does eventually devolve into like, oh look, but remember when this funny shit happened and this was lame and blah blah blah.
To be clear, make it as clear as possible. Neither of you two were asked to or said that you were sort of framing your thoughts on that film in the form of a review. And I think if you either were asked to or wanted to, you'd have presented it very differently. But what I mean is that, like, you could take that conversation we had just then, which, like you said, Chris, didn't touch on, like, writing or cinematography or performances in any way. And instead, now, what do I know about this film after this conversation? I know that, like, there's some weird inconsistencies with Steppenwolf's armor, and that Aquaman should have held, like, they should have run when Aquaman was holding the water, and that the woman who was singing a song looked like she shouldn't have been singing a song. There are some people, I think, on some platforms who would take points like that and feel like they were genuinely critiquing the movie. When in fact they're just like...
There's this one guy that I watch that critiques Star Wars stuff, and his whole thing, it's almost like... Do you remember those videos that came out on YouTube at one point where it's like everything wrong with?
Yes.
And then they just like list...
It's funny because they are also... That's so obviously meant to be like... It's tongue-in-cheek, right? Like that's the truth.
That is the thing. It's not trying to be a review. It's like, hey, this is just a form of entertainment. But this one Star Wars reviewer, I quite like his stuff because I find him funny, but I don't take him as a reviewer, even though he kind of sees himself as a reviewer. So that in itself is quite funny. But what he does is exactly that. He's like, okay, let me give an example, okay? A bunch of people, myself included, in Star Wars The Last Jedi, hated the hyperspace thing, right? Where the ship...
Is it when they go really fast and they split the destroyer in half or something?
Yeah, okay. Right. Now, you can look at that and say that's a stupid moment and it kind of undoes some of the thinking or preconceived notions of how the universe works in Star Wars, right? But ultimately, that's not a review. That doesn't have any bearing on whether a film is good or not. Obviously, if you have too much of that, then it starts to be like, this film doesn't understand its storytelling, right?
Sure,
but that's not really what it is. But this guy is like, this person sneezed instead of coughed, like fucking 4 out of 10. That's not a thing.
I had the exact same thing as you the other day, but it was a game, and a game that I thought was pretty universally liked and that I liked as well. And someone made a video on YouTube about everything they disliked and everything that's wrong with this particular game. I'm not going to say its name because I feel weirdly uncomfortable about people being able to go and find it and then knowing, being like I'm slagging this guy off. But the reason I clicked on it was because I'm pretty sure it was over an hour long. I might actually fact check that. And I was like, what the fuck? How is this guy going to talk for that long about like everything that's wrong with this game? And I'm sure you guys know what I mean when I say that I clicked on it, I listened to the first 30 seconds, and I went, that's how.
That's how, yeah.
Because it's totally that kind of, that nitpicking as a form of critique kind of way of looking at art, or whatever you want to call it, a piece of media.
Dude, look,
that
you
can stretch out to infinity.
Of course you can. Look, you could take Breath of the Wild and you can pull it apart and eventually come out with Alex Jones's opinion of it, saying it's a trash game.
I've never nitpicked Breath of the Wild. I just say it's overrated.
Wow.
In general.
But you know what I mean? Like,
no, of course, yeah.
You can take a masterpiece and you can find flaws, and you can find enough flaws that then you can break down that masterpiece and try. And if you can find a person who can listen to you in the way that you are intending, they can believe that it is no longer a masterpiece as well.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. There's a sense that you can nitpick anything, and it's always the people who don't appreciate it in the first instance who say, I don't like this because, and you say, what do you mean? It's amazing. And then they go, because, and then they can list all these little nitpicky things, ad infinitum, just go crazy with it. And then I suppose the idea is because they're trying to say, this is why I don't like it. And they use the nitpicking to prove their point. Whereas in reality, you can absolutely have somebody who loves something which is not perfect and has loads of nitpicky problems with it. But that person could probably take the nitpicky person's favorite thing and do exactly the same to that and nitpick it until there's nothing left.
Yeah.
I think in the sense of, as Jamie said, like critique in general and review in general needs to be much more overarching and needs to consider all of it. And in the sense, by the end, with most things, you can just get a feeling across the board of a piece of art, and you can say, I loved this. So a great example of this, and I'm sure media students and whatever would laugh their heads off, 300 is one of my favourite films. I fucking love that film.
300 is a great film.
It's such a good movie, and it is CGI muscle bound mess in some respects, but I think it's a bloody brilliant film, and I love it. And you could, but I think if something leaves you feeling like this was great, that you've just enjoyed it, it kind of doesn't matter what other people think anyway.
Yeah. Sure. But by the way, I looked up the faction figures on that thing I was talking about just to remind myself. So the game has an 85 on Metacritic.
Okay.
This guy's video, which is about how, and I'm not even going to say it, this guy's video about this game, which is strongly critical of this game, is 1 hour, 21 minutes long.
How many views, though?
Wow.
2.6 million.
See, this is
and an overwhelmingly positive like to dislike ratio.
You need to tell us after what game this is, because I don't know what you're talking about.
I'll copy in the YouTube link in the chat now, and you guys will see.
You know what it is? It's in a way, it's the quartering effect. Oh, right, yeah. It's the quartering effect, right? Whereby the algorithm is rewarding this kind of content. And because
critical
it's hypercritical negative content that has no actual value, right? It's almost like recycled criticism. And then what is happening is you are finding your niche audience that are seeking that, and it's just this like reward loop that it kind of grows from there. You're giving people what they want to do, which is, I mean, that's what an algorithm is there for, sure. But it's almost this like reward of bad content in a way.
I don't know. I don't ever call it bad content. Like maybe that's an extreme, like what the example Jamie's given. But I definitely think like there's space for negativity and nitpicking, Like if I wouldn't like it if everything was positive, and if you weren't going to be positive, don't say anything. I don't like that.
I don't disagree, but I think building a whole channel around it and just day in day out churning that stuff out, I don't know. Like, look, hands up, we did it on All Time Gaming, right? Like one of our earliest successful videos was 6 overrated games from your childhood, where we ripped into a lot of games, like including Ocarina of Time, but we had valid criticisms. Some of it was nitpicky, sure, but we always backed it up with, and we were made sure to do this point because we were unsure how it would be received. We're like, it's a fucking good game. That's the point of it.
Yeah.
But this is the stupid thing in this good game. And that's why it could be seen as overrated.
Do you know what my favorite one of those was that we did back in the day?
Yeah.
Was 6 game franchises that deserve to die. And on the thumbnail, I think, was Dead Space. And so everyone goes crazy, like, you bastards, you think Dead Space. But if you listened, which I wish more people did, what we were actually saying was not that we hated them so much that they deserved to die, but actually they were on such negative trajectories because of how poorly they were being handled that we're glad they basically died before they got worse. Like, so Dead Space, for example, if you look at the trajectory as something to go by, a potential Dead Space 4 could have been a disaster. So in some respects, we're glad that it died before it got to that point. Yeah. That was the argument we were trying to make. But of course,
I feel like we always try to straddle it a little bit on the safer side. Whereas other people, like maybe this reviewer, would just be like, here's an hour why Dead Space is this fucking garbage fire,
Like you need balance, right? You need positivity and negativity. If you're gonna have negativity, negative content and videos, then you need positivity and you need positive videos and content to sort of balance those out. I think you're right, Chris, and maybe at the moment, negative stuff is preference.
We know it. On ATG, we knew if you do a negative video, you get the views. That's just that's how it is.
Yeah.
But we need to crack on.
We do need to crack on.
We've talked about this for a long time. We haven't even heard what Jamie's been playing this week.
No, I guess I get the onus this week of keeping it brief, right?
Sorry, mate. Apologies.
Not at all. Luckily, I haven't played much either. Weirdly enough, I ended up amending for some past mistakes this week and seeking forgiveness because Lord knows I have sinned. When it comes to a particular series of games. So basically, I was on the internet the other day, and I can't remember what the context was or where I even saw it, but somewhere I came across a quote, a little speech from a character called Cave Johnson from the Portal series.
Oh,
most notable.
Now we're talking.
It was the Lemons quote, where he at one point in the game, Jonesy, he says that, hey, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. And then later on, when he's very angry, he does one of the speeches where he's like, no, don't make lemonade. Get angry, take them to your scientists, make your scientists turn them into like combustible, explosive lemons so that you can throw back at, and so on. Listen to the thing, he does it better. But basically, it made me realize, and I don't know if you guys have experienced this before, particularly because of our time with ATG, that I've played the Portal games, both of them. I've watched people play them an awful lot. I watched Jonesy, learn to speedrun parts of Portal 1, for example. We made videos about them all the time. Characters like GLaDOS and so on and so forth were regular regular features in our list videos back in the day. But I realised when I was listening to this Cave Johnson thing that I'm not sure I'd ever finished Portal 2.
Really?
Genuinely.
Oh, wow,
genuinely. Okay. I couldn't be...
And I guess that is weird because you would have seen the ending of Portal 2 because we would have done multiple videos on it.
Oh, bro, yeah. I think the ending of Portal 2 and the fate of one of Portal 2's more notable characters is like, you can't be on a channel like All Time Gaming and not just know that like that. So that's why sometimes you end up not interacting with these games in the way that you sort of subconsciously registered that you had. So I made amends this week, played through all of Portal and all of Portal 2 over the last 48 hours. Portal 1 in one sitting, Portal 2 in, let's call it 2 to 3, because I kind of took a break every now and then.
Yeah, nice.
They both aged well. Portal 2 has aged better. It's a big jump in terms of the quality of the...
Yeah.
I wouldn't say the quality of the writing necessarily, but obviously the broader range of characters allows them to explore more territory with that writing.
There's more fleshed out, right?
Yeah, and the comedy specifically, which is so hard to do in games, holds up surprisingly well.
Yeah, dude, Portal 2 is a masterpiece.
I legitimately think I'm with you, not just in sort of a game in its own right, but also like how smart they would have had to have been to make that sequel, to take Portal 1 being what it was and say, okay, we're not going to shy away from the things we've done in the past. We're going to re-embrace Aperture. We're going to re-embrace GLaDOS, because those things are Portal to some people. And yet we're going to pile on all these other elements, and both in terms of the gameplay and the story. At one point at Portal 2, I was like, kind of like, oh, I remember this becoming a lot more freeform. I'm surprised how much of this is still kind of structured room after room after room with, there are sort of connective tissue in between.
Yeah.
But it never got boring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I did similar to you. Well, not like with both of them though. With Portal 1 and 2 a couple of years ago, I think I finished them both inside of like 3 months. Like a period, maybe about 2 years ago, and I loved it. Playing it like that was wicked. I loved that because I get having that experience and going through both of them in quick succession they're so enjoyable. And like you said, the writing's on point. The levels is such a well crafted couple of games.
There's nothing better in a puzzle game than when it makes you feel smart, right? That's the feeling, the euphoric feeling that we're all searching for. And there were some points towards the end of Portal 2 where the elements that get introduced in the Cave Johnson segment of the game, like the various gels, and some of the elements that get introduced in the Aperture side of things, like... in fact, do you remember Wheatley introduces his own puzzles towards the end, and he's got the beams that kind of suspend things in the air? And when you get to the point that those things are combining, and you realise that you can use those beams to suspend the gels in the air, and then stop them to drop them in certain points, like just some of those moments where you go, oh, holy shit. Like, how smart do these guys have to be to make me feel smart for figuring out the things that they designed? I was just... very impressed on a number of different levels at how fun it is to still play. Portal 2 specifically, I'd say, was a real blast. Yeah.
I remember you played
one of those ones.
Yeah, sorry, Jonesy, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's one of those things when I think about Portal, it just makes me want more from that universe. It just makes me want to experience more. Like,
I was going to say that I remember, Jamie, you were playing some of the co-op with Steph.
Yeah.
On the stream. I haven't played the Portal 2 co-op, so...
Me either.
Yeah. I haven't played it all the way through, clearly. I think we got 2.5 hours in, but also we got stuck quite a lot. I got stuck more in that co-op with Steph than I did maybe in the entirety of the single-player run of that game. And maybe it was because of memories and sort of like familiarity re-emerging with those puzzles, but...
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Good games nonetheless, and very easy ones, and affordable ones to pick up and play if they are kind of gaps in your gameography, so to speak.
Yeah. But I don't know if I'm lying. I think I tried to play a bit of Portal 2 in VR, and it's fucking horrible.
Yeah, I would not imagine that to be good.
I think I had like a plugin or something. I think I had a plugin that sort of did because you can get like third-party plugins that allow you to play non-VR games in VR. And or maybe it was like a test thing that someone had done.
There's some Portal universe elements in the kind of the minigame collection thing that Valve made. What was it called?
Yeah.
Labs?
No, it wasn't the lab. It wasn't the lab. It was specifically a couple of levels in Portal that I think it was Portal 2 that I did in VR, and it just makes you feel sick as anything.
Oh, right.
Totally. It's like being on a roller coaster because because some of the puzzles are like have to do with velocity, and you got to build up the velocity to get slingshotted out of a fucking portal. That would be the worst thing in VR.
I think it was a couple of minutes. I think I just tried it because I wanted to see it. I thought, oh, this would be really cool, and it wasn't. It was horrible.
The one I remember is there's a mini game in the lab where you're almost controlling a slingshot in a warehouse, and you're pulling it back and firing these balls and knocking down boxes. But the balls are the cores that were designed to make up elements of GLaDOS's personality. And so like
they talk to you.
They talk to you, and one of them is basically like the bonus ball, where it's got a line that shows you exactly where it's going to go, and it's called Tracer Core. But its personality is just to say its name over and over again. It just goes Tracer Core, Tracer Core, Tracer. Like, I don't know.
One of the things that my first VR experiences was in the lab when you you go into the room and you have to fix the robot and you like pull its face off
Right,
and you have to sort of
yeah.
tinker with the insides and you open like all these drawers and there are different things in, but then the room kind of falls apart and GLaDOS comes over the top of you and it was like, holy shit, GLaDOS is huge. And that whole thing was really, really cool. Absolutely loved it.
There you go. So, cool stuff. Oh, can I quickly say though, you might have noticed, and Chris called it out earlier, that I've written another word.
I can't
You
wait.
have. I was
can't
about
wait
to
for
ask
this.
you about it.
Can't wait for this.
Jonesy, do you want to read aloud for the folks at home what word I've written down on the thing?
It just says chips.
Ah, interesting.
Which,
Chips, also known as crisps in some territories. Ah,
Indeed.
Interesting. I'm going to go a little bit unorthodox here. I'm going to ask if Judge Jonesy would be willing to preside over a case. The people versus Chris Joanidis.
Yeah, I think I know where this is going.
Do you?
I really do.
Judge Jonesy,
and there's a reason why I think I know.
Could I present to the audience Exhibit A?
Yes.
Go on.
Exhibit A I have in my possession is an empty bag of Walker's Max Strong, perfect with beer, jalapeno and cheese, flavor potato crisps, extra hot.
Oh, so good.
The crisps so good, in fact, that Exhibit B, Chris Jones, I don't know why he's an exhibit rather than like a suspect or a defendant or something, brought them to the fore of the conversation a few weeks ago. You told us that you were stockpiling them in some form. Is that right, Chris?
Yes, I have eaten all of them now.
How many bags
All the
would you
ones
say
that
you've
I've
eaten?
stockpiled, I've just eaten them.
How many bags would you say you've eaten overall?
Of those big bags?
6 maybe.
Of that giant
big
bag that
bags.
Jamie had?
Yeah.
It's fair to say, Judge Jonesy, that Chris is trying to convince the good audience of this podcast that these are S-tier crisps, that these are as good as they get. Is that a fair assumption, Your Honour?
I would say so, yeah.
And so the case that I would like to present to Judge Jonesy and the jury that is the I almost called us all-time gaming, the SuperShow audience. Wow, God, that's like 18 months of shit.
I feel like you're drawing
back.
this out just to say something, so just say it.
They're not that good.
Oh, you scumbag. You absolute scumbag.
All right, I need to consider all the evidence, though, so could you please hold up Exhibit A again?
Exhibit A's on the floor, Your Honour, and I can't be bothered.
All right, from memory, I'm going to say that was an empty bag of Max Strong jalapeno and cheese crisps.
Yes.
Ah.
Is it empty?
It is empty, Your Honour.
And that is a rather big bag. So
I'm
you're
a
telling me-
rather big guy.
You're telling me that you ate that entire bag of crisps you didn't really enjoy?
Your Honour, I would like to pose a question. I would like to...
This has pangs of telling someone in a restaurant you didn't like the meal and then
Your Honour,
saying,
I would like,
"Give your
Your
money
Honour,
back."
I would like
you
to,
ate all of
I would like to ask you a question. As a man of faith, would you ever open a bag of crisps that size, find them to be slightly underwhelming based on what you were led to believe, and let them go dry or go stale, or throw them away? Your Honour, would a man of faith like you let these crisps go to waste, or would you eat them like honourable men do?
No, I would let them go dry and stale.
All right, yeah, you know what? I'm going to have to pull out the Phoenix Wright and say, objection! Okay, because you did eat them all. You did eat them all. Not only that, you preserved that packet.
Well, it's because I thought it'd be a funny bit. I'll push it along.
The packet is, Your Honour, the packet is unripped. The packet has been, for all intents and purposes, enshrined.
Do you know what it was? If there was like a little bit of the bottom, this much of the bottom of the bag had like little chip bits still in it, I would, and it had gone a bit stale, I would have said, then fair enough. But because you,
this is the issue.
Did you do this one?
No, I didn't. Sorry, do that again.
Don't do it.
One more time. Just do it for longer this time with your tongue out.
No,
and use
because
the other
if you
hand to
tip
just
the
cut
crumbs, if you tip the crumbs,
I did not tip the crumbs. There are some crumbs in that bag. I'm not going to demonstrate. And do you know why there's no little, remnants of what used to be at the bottom of the bag? It's because I did the thing we all do, which is I decided to play games and eat crisps at the same time, which resulted in sort of a loop that would cycle maybe like every 2 to 3 minutes, where I'd go over, take a handful, bite, taste, go, oh, that's spicy. Go back to my game, forget that they were spicy, and then go back to them.
Yeah, so this is where I come in, okay? Because my Exhibit A is on my phone, but I can't show you now because it's personal and private. But Jamie asked me in a WhatsApp message, but Chris, how hot are they? Do you think that I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, do you think that a scrub of a man,
Objection. Trying to lead the witness.
a lightweight when it comes to all things piquant, do you think that I would be able to contain the flavor within this packet of crisps? And I said, you know what, Jamie? I think you would. I find them a little bit hot, but nothing that I can't handle, and I think you can handle them too. Now, I present to the court that, in fact, Jamie could not handle the heat. He could not handle the heat, and that's why he did not enjoy those crisps. And as a way of getting back at me for assuming that he had the mental and physical fortitude to enjoy a Scoville level above 5, that's right, because he's a lightweight, that he is trying to, make this public forum to try and discredit me and my chip tastes.
I'm sorry, but that doesn't really hold water with me either, because Jamie's finished the pack. If he couldn't handle the heat, he wouldn't have finished the pack.
However, sir, or judge,
the undoing of Jamie's evidence, the empty pack, is also the undoing of your very premise that he couldn't handle the heat.
Yes, Judge Jonesy.
He did handle the heat.
Allow me to present to you Exhibit C. Do you see what this is?
No.
Thin air. It's like nothing.
It's nothing. And do you know why it's nothing? Because we have no evidence that Jamie actually ate those crisps himself.
I don't know about that. I find Jamie's an honourable.
I'd like permission to bring another witness to the stand. Adding to the Discord call Steph. No, I'm joking.
Do you know what? This is an easy one for me because I don't like hot crisps whilst I like hot food, and I don't really like Ridgy Walker's whatever crisps. So the fact that Chris overrated them is not that surprising.
No, do you know what it is? Do you know what it is? I can actually surmise it very quickly. It's just this is boring and gets into Chris semantics within the UK that people might not care about on a global basis. And Chris, I don't know if you've ever had them, but basically, Walker's Max, great. Before they went on all the sort of perfect with beer shit and wings flavors and so on and so forth, they had a bunch of regular flavors that came in the smaller bags. A lot of them were found in meal deal aisles and meal deal selections.
Yeah, sure.
They had a cheese and onion, they had a paprika, and they had a third one, a red packet called Flamin' Hot. Walker's Max Flamin' Hot, which I once picked up because I thought that's the exact same name as the Monster Munch that is spicy, right. And that's an amazing flavor profile. And I was disappointed overall by the flavor profile. The flavor dust that they use on Walker's Max Flamin' Hot is the same as the flavor dust they use for the jalapeno component of the jalapeno and cheese Walker's Max. And that was disappointing to me.
Okay,
Chris, I promise you, if I could get a bag of them side by side, I promise you. Immediately, I was like, what is that flavor? And I actually started Googling to try and figure out what I could taste. And that's what I could taste. The cheese, I'm going to say it, the cheese profile needs amping up. Cheese crisps are underrepresented in the global market. I'm fed up with What's-Its. I'm fed up with cheesy Doritos. I need more options.
I will defer that point. The cheese profile on those crisps do take not only a back seat, but a back seat compared to the jalapeno flavor. But
anyway, do you know what I had one time? Cheese popcorn. I had cheesy popcorn once, and that was well nice. As a flavour profile, as Jamie would have put it, was very enjoyable on some cheesy popcorn that I had in.
Right. Well, I think the only thing for it, then, Your Honour, is it's come down to a he said, she said.
It actually hasn't. The court actually has one other way of clarifying this issue, and will be decided next week. Because we will adjourn until next week, the 69th episode, and the judge himself will procure a pack of said crisps and try them and decide whether or not.
But hold on, because I'm calling mistrial here.
I'll be impartial. I'll be impartial.
You've just admitted that A, you don't like hot crisps. B, you don't like Ridgy crisps. It's stacked against me. What I'm proposing is that the audience lets us know.
I was going to say, open this up to the jury and say anyone based in the UK, try and procure a packet of these jalapeno and cheese Walker's Max, as well as Jonesy.
I do welcome your opinion next week.
Yeah, I think Jonesy should do it too.
Okay, and we'll use a mixture of the jury in the comments below, and my own opinion. No, well, I think I can be impartial, Chris. I think I can try and assess the flavour profile and decide whether or not you're right or wrong, even though they're not my sort of go-to. Because I like spicy food and I like jalapeno and I like cheddar, so hopefully I'll be able to have some sort of insight. But with that,
moving on,
random little crispy court over. Let's move on to
crispy court.
Crispy court. Let's move on to an actual news story.
Hold on, before we do, can we just ask people to let us know if they want a regular crispy court feature, and each week we'll just profile a different flavour.
Can we get a jingle like the jingles they have in those TV shows? Like what's the one that's like?
Oh yeah, that's
is that like Judge Judy or something? No.
It's not Law and Order.
It's Law and Order. It's Law and Order, isn't it?
Isn't Law and Order just that dun dun?
Dun dun. Yeah, that's because that's a memey one. You get that one quite a lot.
Or you maybe like Special Victims Unit or something.
Chris is with me. So I'm gonna ask that if the court does return that it gets its own jingle. But then, that's just me. That's just me.
But hey, we're too lazy to put timestamps, so we're going to be too lazy to put the jingle in.
Definitely.
There was one time, do you remember, Crail even made us a jingle, and I was editing it. I was meant to put it in, and I didn't. So it's just a gap. Like the one time someone actually made us a jingle, and we didn't even fucking
and I put it in the next week because, we'd left it out.
Yeah.
So it was featured.
Sorry, Crail.
Thanks, Crail.
Listening.
There you go.
But let's move on. Let's move on to some news. Almost the fourth member of the Super Show at this point, Jason Schreier has written an article in Bloomberg where he has sort of gone into some interesting details about Sony and the goings on, and that there is some unrest growing within Sony and PlayStation, I should say. He's got an article where he says that prioritization of the biggest possible games and studios has been undertaken, which I suppose is not going to do very well if you are some of the smaller games and studios. So I'm going to tell you what, Jamie, I'm going to ask you to give us the lowdown on this because I haven't read the article and I'm just going to be looking at your points.
Fair enough.
So probably easier.
I'll be honest, it was a bit of a kind of a sprawling article, especially if you consider all the various bits and pieces that came out after it was published. So it is a weird one to kind of...
It's a saga, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a bit of a saga, but basically you kind of hit the nail on the head, Jonesy, when you said that apparently... some unrest is being sown within the PlayStation empire as they continue to prioritize the biggest studios and the biggest games, talking about companies like Naughty Dog, Sony Santa Monica, Guerrilla Games, and the Uncharted, Last of Us, God of War, Horizon Zero Dawns of the PlayStation family. But apparently these companies and these games are being now pushed and prioritized at the expense of smaller projects, smaller studios, and either new IPs or sequels that were kind of in the balance. So Jason Schreier's article kind of takes two forms. On the one hand, he looks at some studios that are maybe suffering at, under this kind of this new-ish regime or this change in regime. He calls out Japan Studio, who recently went through a bunch of changes. It seems like they're restructuring to focus on the team that do all the Astrobot stuff. I think they're called Asobi. But many other team members behind games such as Gravity Rush and the Everybody's Golf series have lost their jobs. There have been layoffs there. He looked at Media Molecule and Dreams and how that game and that company are perhaps suffering from a lack of marketing. Sony potentially not pushing that game. And also talks, and this is what one of the biggest sort of themes of the article are about, is two studios, Sony Bend, who are behind Days Gone, and a team called the Visual Arts Service Group, who were a big team of people that kind of, as their name would suggest, aided with the production of games like God of War and The Last of Us, specialising in animation and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But were
they
starting...
did a lot of polishing, didn't they?
Totally,
End results.
They were roped in to kind of like get stuff over the line, but they were coming up to speed to develop their own game, or at least trying to. And that's where some juicy stuff around the games that were being made starts to come in. So the Visual Arts Service Group first, they basically decided that it was time to make a game. They were trying to staff up, and Sony were cutting off their ability to staff up and ramp up in the way they wanted to. Their plan originally was to make a ground-up remake of the first Uncharted game. They started working on that. They were getting pulled in different directions. They started to lose their autonomy. And when it came time to evaluate the progress they'd made on that game, I think it was Herman Hulst, the head of Worldwide Studios, who was like, not good enough, cancelled it. They were then like, right, what can we do? What's a bit more within our grasp? They decided to actually do a ground-up remake of The Last of Us, with a much more recent game, but apparently remake The Last of Us with kind of The Last of Us 2's gameplay and visuals. I think that was the idea. But I'm kind of with you, Chris. Like,
it's mental,
bizarre choice.
They've got a remastered version of The Last of Us. It's perfectly fine. Like,
yeah.
It's almost those things like it's too soon to make a remake. I don't know, maybe. Some people are excited about it, and I'm sure it would be cool and fun and fine, but I just don't...
I don't think it's necessary. No, I don't think it's necessary at all.
Yeah, which is kind of the point of it, right? Like, put your energies elsewhere.
Right.
Like an Uncharted remake makes a bit more sense, especially if you play the first Uncharted, just how fucking aged it is.
But I guess this is that project, the Last of Us remake project, is still going ahead. But what has happened apparently is that rather than being able to staff up and continue to work with autonomy, the Visual Arts Service Group dev team, who are also kind of referred to as the secret San Diego team, that lots of people thought were working on an Uncharted spin-off. We now know that that was in fact never true, or at least doesn't appear to ever have been true. They have found themselves almost folded in under Naughty Dog. The Last of Us remake is now almost being led by Naughty Dog, and that team are working under Naughty Dog. So it's an example of Sony, again, prioritizing the big team who kind of seem to deliver because they are very risk-averse when it comes to smaller teams and sketchier projects. The other example of a team that has suffered from the exact same thing is, as I said, Sony Bend, who made Days Gone. Obvious thing to do, despite the critical reception of that game, is to pitch for a sequel, because it sold really well. So the story apparently is that Bend pitched Days Gone 2, Sony look at the development process of Days Gone 1 and also the critical reception and basically reject the sequel. So it seems like Days Gone 2 is not and will not happen.
There's a weird it's a weird thing with this whereby it almost seems like The Last of Us remake, the reasons it seems like they would do that is to capitalize upon the big hoo-ha around The Last of Us Part 2. And it seems like it's still fresh enough in people's minds that they can say, we need to, if we put this out, people will buy it, like, so we should do it. Which then is almost odd because you then say, well, okay, then you can use the same rationale for a Days Gone 2, because whilst the critics didn't like it, it absolutely smashed it when it came to the audience. And if you put out Days Gone 2, it will get bought. Like, there'll be a hype train to get that game, and everyone will be saying how amazing it looked. It'd almost do better if it isn't, a critical success, if it's just a sequel, because then it will be able to have a whole division between the audience and the critics again. So it's surprising that on one hand they want to capitalize for Last of Us remake, and then they're not going to do it for Days Gone 2, which I find kind of weird. I find it kind of
it's almost like they want every game they release to be a triple threat, in that, almost not flawless development process, but as trouble-free development process as possible, a commercial success and a critical success. And those are the pillars that they need to be satisfied before they build.
I mean, I'm going to paraphrase here, but didn't Jim Ryan say he wanted PlayStation to release games that people can't ignore? Something like that, like so big and so fucking blockbuster that they are unignorable.
Yes.
Which then kind of leads to the fact that, like, feeds into the fact that they are focusing more on the bigger AAA studios rather than the AA or the indie studios. That, and
also suggests, and this has been another wrinkle got added to this with the news that Kojima was potentially talking to Microsoft. I think Sony looking at their recent years and like thinking that Ghost of Tsushima, The Last of Us 2, God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn are the titles they want to replicate. Whereas I think games like Dreams, Death Stranding, obviously Days Gone, for one reason or another, either sales, critical, development, whatever it is, they're looking at those games and saying, actually, these aren't the games we want to be making right now.
Yeah.
I suppose that maybe the difference then is, like, Last of Us Part 2 did very well critically, did very well on sales. Tsushima did well on critics and well on sales, which then kind of means that it should be in that first category. But then Days Gone did very well on sales, but didn't do very well critic. So it does seem like they've got these weird pillars, but I don't really know what the pillars are, because some of those games hit pillars and then miss others.
Because you're right, Jonesy, because look at The Last of Us Part 2, how many delays they had, how many leaks they had. So it's a problematic development. And then you also look at,
and the audience reaction wasn't great.
Like the critical reception was high, but the audience reaction was, I'd say it skewed more towards high, but it was not without its controversies, multiple controversies.
Oh, so hold on. So maybe the reason they're remaking Last of Us 1 is to kind of say, we hear that you loved The Last of Us 1 and you didn't love Last of Us 2.
Oh, so you want to play as Joel? Oh,
you want Joel back.
All right, here you go.
So maybe that's why, is they're like, you can have it. We'll
totally
on the box it will say featuring Joel. And everyone will go, yeah.
I mean, I will say that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it's possible as well that people who work for Sony are feeling those same kind of level of confusion that we are around why they are and are not sticking to certain principles when it comes to their decision making.
Yeah.
I know there was someone on Twitter this week who used to work at Sony Santa Monica prior to the God of War thing, when they did development work on the indie game Journey, saying one of the reasons he left is because he could almost see that they were moving away from the development side of the indie game and more focusing on kind of support and maybe publishing on occasion and so on.
Yeah.
The other thing that happened is that, for anyone wondering what happened to Bend after Days Gone 2 got rejected, they got split in half. Half the team started working on a multiplayer project, again, with Naughty Dog. Go figure. That I think people believe to be the multiplayer component of The Last of Us Part 2. The other half of that team got put on I believe, again, something that's now been cancelled, but some kind of Uncharted game or Uncharted spin-off. So literally, when Sony turned down Days Gone 2, what did they do with Bend? They put both of those teams under Naughty Dog. And apparently the heads of Bend had to go to Sony and be like, we don't want to work on this Uncharted thing, and essentially had to fight to get back their autonomy.
Yeah.
And they are now working on something new. But again, the
new
kind
IP, right?
Yeah, the criteria that will have to satisfy to get greenlit and get, the budget it needs and the staff it needs, hard to say. So lots of very strange stuff happening there.
Yeah.
That's kind of brutal, man.
I have a bit of an interesting take on this. So I did read the Bloomberg article. So I recommend that anyone who's interested in it do read the article. It is fascinating. I do have some thoughts on it though, because unless I was reading it wrong, right? The way I'm seeing it is the Visual Art Service Group, they had aspirations to be something more than they were, right?
I think that's fair enough.
Okay, and they were like, hey, we don't want to just be the team that finishes other people's games. We do have aspirations for our own thing, so let's show them what we can do by doing one of these smaller remake projects such as Uncharted or The Last of Us, right? Okay, fine. Then Sony kind of takes notice. Now, Sony is kind of a little bit arm's length with this idea. It seems like they knew about the idea and they were okay with the idea, but they weren't giving them the support, right?
Yes.
So again, you agree with that assumption?
Yep.
Okay. But then what happens is Sony sees that they're working on a Last of Us remake, and then they say, okay, so it's The Last of Us, so let's get Naughty Dog involved, right? Which seems to me to be a fair response.
Yes.
And then what happens is eventually it keeps on going, where maybe it shifts more away from Visual Art Services Group and more towards Naughty Dog, which rubs Visual Art Services Group people trying to do this splinter faction within them to make a new IP, rubs them up the wrong way. But the way I see it, as harsh as it may sound, and I know I've been on the wrong end of this as well, but it's the fact of life, that's business. The Last of Us is Naughty Dog's IP. They're going to give it to Naughty Dog. Sony's going to look at the bigger picture and they're going to say, you know what? Visual Art Services Group is call it a company, whatever it is, a group that is there purely to finish off other games and support them with whatever they need. I mean, the hint is in the name, Visual Arts Service Group, right? And it's almost like saying,
roll off the tongue, yeah.
No, but do you know what I mean? Like it's like saying,
yes,
we're making pizzas. Oh, but we also want to make hamburgers. Okay, let's have a look at your hamburger. Okay, cool. No, we're going to give it to the hamburger people.
Yeah.
Like I get why they want to do it, but it just seems a bit strange to me that they are getting so out of shape and so that Sony won't let them do the job that they're actually there to do.
Well,
or like Sony wants them to do the job that they're there to do, but they don't want to do that. They want to do another job, and they're pissed off that Sony is angry at shifting things around so that they can actually just do the job that they're meant to do.
I don't know.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
I think the visual arts service group is only one angle and one element to the wider story, which encompasses a lot of different teams and games and IPs. And while I get where you're coming from, that Sony can look at that decision and say, hey, makes sense for the people remaking The Last of Us to work under Naughty Dog in some respect, I can also see why that team would be like, look, we know it's their game, their IP, their series, but just let us run on this one. Let us see what we can do. Let us show you what we can do. Like, let's have some autonomy, even if it's their idea and their franchise.
But at the same time, Sony, as the report mentioned, was kind of arm lengths about it, saying like, yeah, okay, I guess you could, but we're not giving you like the actual support.
But that's also part of the problem, right?
Well, I mean, is it though? Because it's.
Hang on. So we're talking about Sony becoming so risk averse that they cancel a remake of Uncharted and only greenlight a remake of The Last of Us if it's happening under Naughty Dog. We're looking at Sony that's so risk averse that says Days Gone 2 didn't get good enough reviews, so Days Gone didn't get enough reviews, so we're not greenlighting Days Gone 2. We're splitting that team in half and making both of them work on things with Naughty Dog as well. Like, I think there are elements of... Look, Jason Schreier knows how to pick stories. He knows how to sensationalize them. And he knows how to, on where necessary, sow a bit of fear amongst the community because it gets people talking and worried and, it raises pulses. But there are elements to this that make you go like...
I get it. But I just think that... and yes, it's part of the bigger picture, but I feel that grouping in this visual arts service group story is just adding tinder to the fire, like unnecessarily. Because
but isn't that what he's trying to do? He's trying to use data points in order to make his point, and if he can use the visual arts thing to add another data point to this is very typical of what Sony are doing at the moment.
But it's like saying, oh, I've got a cough, and now, oh, okay, yeah, it's fucking tuberculosis or whatever. Oh, but there's some there's some chili powder in the next room. And it's like it doesn't seem to really fit. It doesn't seem to fit into it because it's like it's what we said before, right? On these people that can keep on nitpicking and finding threads, and you pick something enough, and you can actually justify its inclusion. And I think that's what's happening.
I disagree.
I'm not saying like it does seem like it's added to it, and it does draw a bigger picture. But I don't think it needs to be in there because it's a completely different issue.
I think you're focused on the second half of the visual arts service group story, which is them trying to make a Last of Us game and being sort of like pulled into under the Naughty Dog banner. But I think the first half of their story, which is them trying to make an Uncharted game and being kept at arm's length and not being allowed to staff up and actually do the work they needed to do to prove that they can remake that game until it is cancelled entirely. That's the thing that's more symptomatic.
Okay, but you're not taking it the step back though, Jamie, and you're not saying, but it's a group that is there not to make games.
Yeah, but like if they were never allowed to make games, why did Sony let them get the 30-man development studio to start making something?
Well, they didn't throw their full support behind it.
Well, exactly, but why throw any? Like, let's say, Jonesy, you're in charge of a team that makes videos. You've got 200 people in your team, and I'm the right person that writes the checks. And you come to me and you say, hey, I know we're a 200-man video team, but kind of really want to see if we can start making music. And I go, okay, yeah, sure. The budgets are rearranged as such that you can now start a 30-man music team within your company. And you come to me like with a work in progress first album, and you're like, okay, need to go up to 100 people to finish this album. And I'm like, actually, I'm just going to get rid of the whole album. Sorry, like, no. I can imagine and then you're like, well, sorry, what if we change genres to make something that's more your taste? And you're like, okay, I won't disband your team, change genres and make something different. You come to me with this new album that's more my genre. I'm like, okay, this might sell well. You're not going to finish it, though. I'm actually now going to absorb that into what I do every day, and you're going to work underneath me. this thing that you've been taking the lead on to get off the ground. That would totally drain morale. People would totally leaving that company, and it is something that Sony are doing.
It would, but your analogy is interesting because I wouldn't be surprised if that is kind of how it went down, and the reason being that for whatever reason Sony were worried by what they'd seen in the development process. That I could imagine there may well be. Where there's like, and so you said, for example, if you had a team of 30 and then you said, hey, look, now I need a team of 100, you could imagine how someone says, well, hold on, your initial budget was for 200. You've just asked for 50% of your whole budget for an extra thing that you don't even do. And I'm not even that convinced about the progress that you've made.
But then what's the kind of management like where you're like, okay, I'm not convinced with the progress you've made. We're cancelling this. We're not expanding your team, but we're going to let you start again on something else entirely. Like if they're not making good progress, if they can't do because they were already a part of the team that did something else entirely. They're part of the visual arts service group that specialized in animations and fucking motion capture and supporting.
But the point is, I guess that they were given a specified range, right? Yeah, capacity, saying work within your means of an additional 30 people, as an example. And then they come back and say, no, we can't do it. So it's like, okay, well, if you can't do it with 30 people, then change the project. So they change the project, say, we can do The Last of Us because it's a slightly newer game, built on newer architecture, so it'll be easier for us to manipulate and remake. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's a thing of like, give someone an inch of rope and they ask for a mile, right?
To me, it does pang elements of they weren't happy with what was going on, so they wanted them to go on to Last of Us, but they weren't happy with how that would be managed, so they put it under Naughty Dog. And then but I have no idea. Like, I don't know. I haven't read the article, and I think you need a lot more information to know, because it's easy to look at one side of the argument and to say, especially with like Visual Arts Service Group, is to say, oh, they're being hindered. They were trying to do something else. But then without knowing like the inside, what was going on. And with all the shit that's happened in the last 2 years with the video games industry in general, with like the way management has effectively been running things, seems to be a massive issue. Like projects coming in late, projects not getting made to the standard you'd expect, massive budgets like that should never have happened. I can kind of see why companies like Sony would want to get a handle on those issues, like the management issues. And maybe that's a big part of it. Maybe that is a big part of all of this stuff.
I think it comes down to...
And with Bend as well. Maybe with Bend too. Maybe they're like, do you know what? We think management was the problem with Days Gone. And we want...
Right. But then...
What if the pitch for Days Gone 2, Sony were like, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. You're not making that.
Unicorns.
Unicorns.
True.
Yeah, and it's like the worst thing.
In some respects there, Josie, I feel like you're looping back around to what Chris said earlier, which is like, it is kind of just business, right?
It's business at the end of the day.
But here's the thing I'm going to say from the gamer's perspective, and the gamer is...
Hold on, because I agree with you though, Jamie. You can go to business and it can destroy morale, it can ruin creativity. Yeah. You can't just pick business or like let creatives do whatever the fuck they want, because then you get Star Citizen. So you've got to go, you have to have some, like, there has to be a meeting of those two things, right?
Yeah, I can agree to that.
And because I just think the PlayStation portfolio gets a lot less exciting when less risks are taken. I'm not suggesting that every risk should be taken. There are calculated risks and there are good risks and bad risks and so on and so forth. But if Sony really does become this thing of like, let's say, like, I don't know, it's a difficult one. Like, if every game is guaranteed to be a Last of Us 2 or a God of War or a Ghost of Tsushima, there's just less of them, then I guess that's great, because, you know, we still get those kind of games. But also you've got like the Xbox approach,
model,
which...
Right?
That is the Nintendo model in some respects, yeah. But then you've got the ever-changing Xbox model, which is just that, like... Because we give away all these games for free, we're just trying to make as many of them as we possibly can with as many different people, and I kind of like that.
And that's the Microsoft strategy. It's just all changing.
No, that's what I was saying. That's because of Game Pass, right? Because they don't need to sell $60 games anymore, so it's just like fuck it. Yeah, everyone make games. Just make as many as you can. We'll give them all away.
I don't know, because that's kind of like throw everything to the wall and see what sticks. I quite like the idea of you have the company who are happy to put money in and back projects then some of them will work and some of them won't. But just take punts and try it. Whereas I find that the sort of just support everything and you will. That's the was it the Blumhouse model of game making, right? You spend a little bit of money making absolutely everything, and eventually you'll hit on an absolute banger and you'll make a load of money. And I'm not a fan of that in sense of games. Probably because I'll miss a lot of really good games because they'll be so swamped. Or I'll be swamped in so many games, they'll be hard to sort of find the really good stuff. I quite like it when Ghost of Tsushima was a new IP only a few years ago, and that's a fantastic game. Days Gone had the potential to be a really good game. It was a new IP. I mean, I'd rather they then said, okay, so that wasn't what we hoped across the board of all these pillars, but we can definitely make some new IP. And I don't think Days Gone 2 is necessarily the thing to do. I think maybe. But I don't think a remake of The Last of Us, a spin-off Uncharted game, and a friggin' everything is just remade and redone. And although I will say I'm really looking forward to the multiplayer for Last of Us Part 2 because the multiplayer for Last of Us Part 1 was wicked. So there we go.
Fascinating either way.
Underappreciated.
Yeah. I think it's very interesting, and it's quite clearly a story that is going to keep on evolving. So keep an eye on it.
Yeah, we'll see what happens in the next. I guess like a year to 18 months, right? We'll see if that is Sony's thing now. Is if PlayStation are like, do you know what? We're only supporting remakes and redos of really recent games, and that's all we're doing.
Because in the next year to 18 months, like you said, like we'll get the fate of things like the whole Kojima situation, which seems like it's going a certain way, but also. You've got things like, not for as much as this article revolves around Naughty Dog and what's happening with the teams that are under them, we don't know for sure what the big bad team, the Neil Druckmann team at Naughty Dog, is doing right now. Because probably not The Last of Us 3, by most accounts. And apparently they also seem interested in giving Uncharted-relating work to the teams that come underneath them. So, new IP from Naughty Dog, that could be like... That could be cool.
Maybe we're being really unfair, and actually, the big, from Naughty Dog is going to be a brand new IP. It's going to be wicked.
There are strong rumors that Guerrilla are now a 2-team studio making Horizon and something else. So maybe that's the way they go. Santa Monica, the same. Rumors so far, even to the extreme that some people don't think Cory Barlog is directing God of War 2. They think he's already working on something else.
That would be mental, though, if he isn't. But anything's possible.
But guys, talking about remakes, I need to hear some more about some juicy remakes. That's all I want to hear about. Old games refleshed and resold. And this, of course, what I'm talking about is Mass Effect, the Legendary Edition. Jeez, can't even say that. Goes gold and gets a brand new comparison trailer so it can show us in side by side, in all its glory, in 4K glory, what the new version of Mass Effect is going to look like when it drops. And I love that I asked Jamie to sort of fill out a few more bullet points, and he's literally written in trailer shows old shit version next to new shiny one.
Gotta get straight to the point these days, Jonesy.
Which is exactly what it does. It's interesting though, because we were talking before the pod about how this isn't a remake, this is a remaster, but it's kind of a weird halfway house, right? It's not a straight remaster. Because and a good way I like, for me thinking about it was, Mafia 1 was a complete remake and was awesome. Mafia 2 was a remaster and was pretty shit. This is kind of in between because they've done a lot more than just remaster the assets.
Well, it's because they've got to bring everything up to date with Mass Effect 3, right? If you're talking about the difference between Mass Effect 1 and Mass Effect 2, you need to kind of like bring them together.
Yeah, you want everything to look good. That's what they want to do, right? This trilogy's got to look really good.
It's a good baseline to have, I think, in video game development in general.
Good.
But I think that's actually where the Visual Arts Service Group went wrong. It's like they forgot to make it look good when they were making all those games.
But I think the difference is that you don't have to make it look as good if you're not trying to get to the standard of something like Mass Effect 3, which was a gorgeous, gorgeous game. I can't wait to see what they're actually going to do with all of these games in general, though, because sci-fi looks wicked anyway. You can always make sci-fi look better because you can just play around with it more, add some sci-fi, add some more
add some sci-fi.
Yeah. But the trailer does look really cool. Some of what they've done looks much, much better than a remaster. And you go down to like volumetrics and lighting and shadows and contrast. But what's interesting about this is we were talking before is that some of it doesn't look that great. Some of it kind of looks a little bit wonky, which Yeah, it's interesting. Should they have gone with a straight remake, do you think?
I don't think it's a question of should they have. I think it's more of a question of could they have. Like we've had this. I feel like we have this exact same discussion every time there's a remake or a remaster conversation happening, which is that, oh, they should have done X, Y, or Z. We literally just had an entire conversation about how difficult it is to budget and staff up and greenlight big projects. The difference between a remake and a remaster on the on your sort of like on your accounts at the end of the year is probably monumental, and I think that was probably more of a determining factor than what they wanted to do.
Especially with like RPGs in general, like and RPGs of like Mass Effect scale, you're obviously gonna it's gonna be a hell of a lot bigger than it is gonna be sort of a small more.
Also, I think it depends on what you can add to it, right? Like you look at the Final Fantasy VII remake, there's scope there for a remake. The initial one was like top-down isometric, old school Japanese RPG with like a timed battles and everything, turn-based battles. There was scope, and it was long enough of a time to kind of say, you know what, we could remake this, and it would be a substantial difference.
Yeah,
like taking a game like Mass Effect 1, like it's still pretty. It's the blueprint is there, right? Like not much needs to be addressed to it except for like visuals, performance upgrades, etc.
Yeah, and what they've done, because I think the difference with RPGs as well is because it's story focused, like you said, there's not masses to do, and this is a 3D game, it's a third person perspective, and so you can't sort of have the impact.
You also have like weird outliers, like they just fucking remade Demon Souls.
Yeah,
right.
Which is like. That's a game that, again, like, it's not story heavy, it's very gameplay heavy, but then it's so gameplay heavy that they couldn't even change gameplay components because hardcore fans would have been angry.
Oh, it's
just a visual thing.
Yeah, it's like Diablo 2 Resurrected.
Bro,
Blizzard have gone to great pains to putting out these blog posts and making sure that people see the blog posts saying, hey, it's underneath. It's not remade.
They were so scared.
Diablo 2.
They were so scared about pissing off Diablo 2 fans that they remade it by building it on top of the old Diablo 2. It's like they were all in costume.
They were like, it's the same code. It's like, okay.
But I feel like with RPGs at least, because most, and especially like a Mass Effect game, there isn't much by the way of the gameplay wasn't exactly the same. Like some of that, there's a little bit of that, but not really. It's more about the cutscenes and the interacting with characters and how the game feels and looks.
Yeah,
it's quality of life.
I don't want this Mass Effect 1 to feel the same as the original Mass Effect.
Definitely not. The one thing that always gets me with remasters, or if they manage to do a really good job on the remaster though, is if they don't improve the audio in like an RPG. So you end up with it looks much better, but you get yes, that's right, Seth, and you're like, dude, you could have re-recorded the audio because this sounds trash. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Or maybe they just let all the audio come out of one channel, so you only get sound in one ear, like the Mafia 2 remaster when that came out. Jesus Christ.
Is that what they did? That's ridiculous.
Oh, yeah, bro. That's why, go back to those podcasts. I'd start playing Mafia 2 Remastered, then stop after like 10 minutes, and then don't come back to it for like 3 weeks because I'm waiting for them to patch the audio.
That's ridiculous.
I was going to say, there's a thing we were talking about before we started recording, which is that I kind of worry sometimes that remasters or treating a game like this, like they have with Mass Effect here, is almost like shooting yourself in the foot in some respects, because it sits in between what people expect from a remaster and what people expect from a remake, because there have been so many low effort remasters that people now accept a resolution bump, for example, as a remaster. And this is much more than that, but not enough to call it a remake. So, but I feel like it comes so close in some respects, especially as there are gameplay changes happening to Mass Effect 1, like they're outright improving stuff and like changing geometry of certain locations, so on and so forth. They are going slightly deeper, but people are instead starting to look at it as like a remake that's not quite good enough, rather than a remaster that goes above and beyond.
You got it wrong, because they don't say remake or remaster, it's Legendary Edition.
It's just Legendary.
This is the next thing. So now all these other games are going to come out with Legendary Editions where it kind of straddles the line.
Yeah, I mean, if thing is, I'm down for line straddling. If that's what people want to do, like call it a remaster and yet maybe go above and beyond in a few areas, depending on what you think of the visuals, as we said, then I'm down for that treatment.
Yeah.
Some of the criticism of this one's been a bit weird because people have said that it's less cinematic and they actually prefer how Mass Effect 1 looked, which is bizarre to me.
I can get it. I mean, we were all watching the trailer just before we'd seen it before, but we were all watching it together, kind of making notes and comments before the podcast. And the new stuff just looks washed out to me. Like, yes, they've got better volumetrics and, you know, better textures, and in some cases the textures are like, it honestly, it looks like it could go from PS1 to PS5 in terms of the textures. But sometimes you add too much and you do lose something, like the contrast in the new stuff. I quite like the dark and dingy thing, but then we were saying that it was probably looked all dark and dingy because they didn't want you to see the shitty textures.
Yeah.
There is something to be said for not just showing everything as is and trying to use some of your own styling, as it were. I mean, look at Zack Snyder. He's made Justice League look much more gritty and slow-mo, and he's tweaked a lot of that, the grade and things on that, and it's to great effect. So there you go.
But it's almost like they had all these tick boxes, right? This is what it seems like to me. They've got all these tick boxes. They bring in the stuff in this like engine, whatever it is, and they're like, cool, do you want this? And you tick the box, so yes, and it does it, right? And it almost feels that like what you shouldn't do is tick all of the boxes.
Right.
And it seems like they have ticked all the boxes, which is fine. Like, that's all fine, and it's almost a flex in a way. But it's sometimes like, well, tick box on line number 5 and tick box on line number 8, they're kind of counteracting each other, and it's making stuff look a little bit weird. To me, all the new stuff looks really good. The volumetrics, the alpha effects, etc., looks really good, but it does look washed out to me. Like, it looks flat. Whereas the older stuff, because they're probably trying to hide the sins, it had a lot more kind of depth to it, and the contrast ratios just appealed to me a little bit more, I think. But I mean, that's, you know, we mentioned before about nitpicking as opposed to a review, and that is the purest form of nitpicking, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's a trailer. You're fine.
I prefer the contrast.
Nah, that's you get away with it on a trailer.
Well, we're gonna have to talk about a few more remakes and things as we move on to the latest Nintendo Indie World stream, but not all remakes, because there were some new games shown off there as well. I didn't actually watch the stream, but I know you guys did, because I was getting constant updates in the
I didn't watch the stream. I saw hand selected some trailers after the fact.
Okay, but the one that, of course, jumped out to me first, and is because Chris, did you stream it on your own? I think you did stream it on your own.
Oh, it was a let's play.
It was a series, like
it was an
edited series.
One of the few times that we did.
It wasn't a stream. Oh, of course, it was before that.
It was an edited series. That was way before we did streaming, and it was when we started to think to ourselves, how can we best utilize some of our time? And that's why on that playthrough it was just me. It wasn't you guys included, because I recorded it at home on my own time.
Right, that was it, yes.
And then just try to kind of, I don't know, yeah.
For the 98% of people that don't know, Oxenfree was a lovely little sort of side-scrolly 2D game about some alien goings-on, wasn't there? And some sort of weird
so you had
this
like radio device that kind of tuned into an otherworldly frequency. The game wasn't necessarily scary, but it did kind of like pervasively get under your skin with the use of that radio, like static, and then hearing shit in the static. Like, that's always gonna.
Oh, bro, that reminds me of in the TV series Chernobyl. Whenever you hear is it the Geiger meter that registers the Geiger counter? You hear that clicking. That turned that sound effect into one of the scariest things known to man.
Yeah, God, right, and you kind of take that kind of effect and you use it to some kind of a paranormal degree, and it's quite effective. But yeah, the game was great. It wasn't long. I really enjoyed it. It was a great story. You know, there's no challenge to it. I don't think there's any fail states in that game. It's just you go on and it's a glorified cutscene, I guess. It's what Jonesy would say Telltale games are.
No, I wouldn't. Not with Oxenfree, because it's that kind of indie games I give a pass to, because they often have one like main hook, and often the game, like you said, it doesn't have many fail states. The whole point is to play and enjoy the game. And if they have one hook and one sort of thing to keep you playing, I'm fine with that, because they can keep you playing. You can enjoy the hook, and you can enjoy.
Well, Alex Jones, then may I interest you in Oxenfree and Oxenfree 2: Lost Signals, coming to Switch and Steam.
It was they showed a trailer, didn't they? They had a trailer for
Oxenfree 2, a brief trailer and a bit of an announcement. I'm really excited about this. Like, Jamie was right. He messaged me straight away. He's like, Chris, Oxenfree 2 was the one more thing on the Nintendo Indie World stream. And I thought he was trolling me, but it's true.
No.
Let me tell you, like, this indie game fucking nailed it in terms of the atmosphere of that kind of a game. It really is like a small gem if you are interested in that kind of thing. So I'm really excited for the sequel. I will definitely, day one or pre-order, I'll pick it up because it's going to be good. But you want to hear one of the criticisms of the original game that I had, and you want to talk about nitpicking.
Go on.
You've got this beautiful art style. You've got this game that's like effective in a lot of ways. Obviously, its audio is like a high level because that's part of the mechanic, is this kind of static audio of this radio and hearing the paranormal things in between it. But the mouse cursor it used in order for you to click to go everywhere was just the standard Windows mouse cursor. Obviously, I wasn't playing on console. And I was just like, that ruined it for me. It's like, why didn't you just make a fucking bespoke mouse cursor, you dildo?
Not good enough.
It wasn't good enough, quite frankly. And if they don't fix it in Oxenfree 2, I will not be interested in Oxenfree 3. So, there we go.
This is your last chance. Your second last chance.
But yeah, I'm proper amped for it.
That's coming out this year as well, isn't it? I don't know if they gave an actual...
I don't think they gave a date. They just said this year.
But there was also Ollie Ollie World, which is the next one in the Ollie Ollie series, of which I have no idea what that is. That's coming to Switch, PC,
skating,
Xbox,
bro.
And PlayStation. I guess skating.
I'm really looking forward to this game, I will say.
I was thinking Jamie might be into it. As soon as I was like, right, okay, so it's got something to do with skating, which means Jamie's going to be all over it.
I really liked the Ollie Ollie game, so this seems like a fun and curious little extension of that.
So what we're talking, switchy feeling, what's his name, Tony Hawk style game, or something a little bit.
Well, it's side scrolling,
2D cartoony kind of thing.
Yeah,
it's 2D. Okay, right.
It looks like they're kind of like trying to sort of open up the areas that you can skate around in, and with a bigger focus on exploration. They also showed you like meeting NPCs. So I'm curious to see how that format works, because I don't remember Ollie Ollie 2, for example. I seem to remember that focus being more on like the trick system and combos and so on and so forth, and nailing runs and lines. So curious to see how they explore that sort of world of gaming.
Nice. And then there was a something which I loved as a kid because I used to play it in the arcades, which is House of the Dead.
Yes, bro.
I can't think. So that to me is one of the sort of ones I can't imagine playing on a Switch. I'm like, how the heck is that going to work with those little Joy-Cons? Is it going to be like you can take the Joy-Con off and use a pointy function to shoot? Yeah. Is that what they're going to do?
So when they announced this, it was first of all, it's a House of Dead remake. Okay, so it's a remake. But yeah, they showed
I want that remake. Like if they said there's a House of the Dead 2, I would have, or whatever number they would have got to, I'd have been like, meh. As a remake, that sounds cool.
When I watched the trailer, I was a bit like bummed out. I was like, oh man, you're gonna miss the light guns and you're gonna miss all of this. And what are you gonna use the fucking the Joy-Cons to, the analog sticks to move around, the cursor to shoot the things, and then I realized that the Joy-Cons are the fucking light guns.
Yeah. That will be cool. Also, the fact that you can,
plus they're really tiny, so you could be like,
well, that will suck. But yeah, no, being able to get past like 15 minutes into that game will be nice before you go, I've got no money left.
Yeah, you run out of points.
It the bat? I always used to get killed by is it bats? There used to be like a swarm of bats that would come out and fly and take you out.
Oh, geez, I don't remember, dude.
But it's horrendous, yeah.
But for me, it was like those light gun games in the arcade, like fucking Time Crisis. Oh, yes. Time Crisis and House of the Dead.
I had a friend who had one of these on the OG Xbox with a light gun. I'm trying to figure out, I'm guessing by the dates there would have been 3. I think I spent a lot of time with that.
Right, yeah.
But
there's a weird, I never got into them at home. I couldn't.
It's an arcade
the feel
thing,
was
dude.
wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
It had to be in the arcade. It was the noise. You just sort of gone bowling and done whatever and been a kid, and then you're like, I'm going to play some arcade. And you're right up.
I remember I had Virtua Cop on the Mega Drive, and it wasn't the same.
Yeah, Time Crisis was, like...
But then another game which we've talked about relatively recently was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, which is going to be on the Switch. Something that I think I'm definitely hyped for because I just need more Turtles games in my life.
100%.
So I'm glad that's going
Let's
to be
stream it, bros. We'll get Steph involved, and there's 4 turtles right there.
And we'll have to go back and remember what everyone said, or which turtle everyone said we needed to be.
You guys couldn't even agree, let alone remember.
Yeah. Oh, first come, first serve then.
I will be Donatello.
No, Michelangelo.
I don't know.
No, Steph's Donatello, Chris was Leonardo, Jamie, you were Raph, and I was Michelangelo. I believe that's what the audience came down.
Don't agree with it, but whatever.
Yeah, no, it is what it is.
Raphael.
Go on, Jonesy, let's wrap this up.
Yeah, let's wrap it up. We've got to get this. So Fez is also coming to the Switch, which I think is a great addition. That's a great sort of game to get on the Switch.
It's good fit for the Switch. But is Fez now becoming like Doom, and all platforms needs to have Fez?
Hang on a second.
You're going to be playing Fez on your calculator soon.
But you probably could. It's but that is a very cool game. So
it's a game. Cool. It's a game that I've played but never finished or saw all the way through.
Same.
And but my understanding is that there are elements to Fez that are kind of like sort of like deep and very intriguing and go beyond what you expect. And I actually saw someone tweet yesterday upon this news. He said, you know what would be a really fun experiment is if you've got 20 people who are all playing Fez for the first time and put them all in a Discord channel together and got them all to agree not to look into any other outside sources about the game, like explanations or tutorials or wikis or anything like that, and just saw what they found out about the game just through pure discussion. And I was like, do you know, that would be a very cool experiment. I don't know.
That'd be like a cool series to watch.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
Like, yeah, because someone referred to it as the like a version of the Stanford prison experiment. So it was like the Fez prison experiment.
Well, I think should we wrap it up there?
Well,
hold on. You know what, Jonesy? You know what wasn't on this fucking Indie World stream?
Sorry, mate. Go on. What was not on the stream?
Silk Song.
No Silk Song.
Vaporware, mate. Vaporware doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist. It's in your mind.
Yeah.
And that's a bombshell to end it on.
Bombshell indeed.
But by the way,
yes,
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles wiki. Raphael is apparently the group's strong silent type.
Yeah, we said before he can be the moody one.
But But doesn't silent mean he's quiet?
No, strong
he's more
silent.
Like broody.
Yeah, stand in a corner because he's mad about something.
How am I broody?
See, well, this is what I was saying. You're Michelangelo. I'm Raphael.
Although Michelangelo is considered
Leonardo.
the funniest of the team, Raphael is the most sarcastic. Okay, that's an interesting a little wrinkle there. There's some nuance to this.
A wrinkle.
He does have a soft side, although it's rarely, if ever, displayed. Can relate.
There we go.
And with that bombshell.
All right, go on. We need a code word and then fucking done.
Oh,
I can't be this guy. He has a pet turtle, and he shows him affection.
Yeah, because you'd kick that turtle into oblivion.
Let's have impulsiveness get in the way of rational thinking. Would never do that.
Really? What about if we have a code phrase and it's just Jamie kicked a turtle?
Jamie kicked a turtle. Shat on a turtle.
I wouldn't kick a turtle. I'd make turtle soup. Shout out to the Chinese.
Oh, there you go, turtle soup. We've got to have one. So if you made it to this point in the podcast,
that's the thing, right?
Thank you very much for getting to the end of the podcast. You have got a constitution.
You're pulling a face,
to write
Chris.
home about. Turtle soup is the code word. If you would like to sponsor us or be a Patreon of ours, you can go over to patreon.com/SuperShow. Is it the Supershow or just Supershow?
Who's going to sponsor us?
I've got no idea. I'm going to have to check. It is Super Show Pod. There you go. That's what it is. We're on Twitter and YouTube if you're watching this on a podcast platform, or also on podcasting platforms if you're watching this on YouTube, if you would like to get this in an audio form and not just on video. We are also on paisleyradio.com every week on Thursdays if you missed it. So it's the following Thursday is the previous Friday's podcast, but then it gets replayed again on Monday. So you've got plenty of opportunities to tune in and watch us. Thank you so much for coming along. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Jamie. And we will see you all next time.
See ya.
Bye.